Chapter 773. Lin Fengya had a look of disbelief on her face as she watched Chu Xiu's sea-splitting saber strike heavily injure the nine-tailed celestial fox. That was the trump card of the Yu Palace, but it had been heavily injured by Chu Xiu. What kind of trump card was that? Was there a problem with the nine-tailed celestial fox, or was Chu Xiu too strong, so strong that it was beyond her imagination? In reality, ever since the great battle on floating Jade Mountain, Lin Fengya had been recuperating in the Yu Palace. It had been a long time since she stepped out of the Jianghu. Chu Xiu was an influential figure in the Jianghu, but to Lin Fengya, she had only heard about him through hearsay. As for who Chu Xiu had killed and how he had slain Jianghu and the other spirit refinement realm experts, she had always heard about it. Therefore, she did not have a direct impression of Chu Xiu's strength. Until now, she had seen it. It was so strong that it made people tremble. At this moment, Lin Fengya and Yan Fian both felt a trace of regret. They didn't regret scheming against Lu Fengxian. They only regretted being too careless. They didn't account for the relationship between Chu Xiu and Lu Fengxian. They also didn't account for Chu Xiu's strength to be this strong. Indeed, LV Fengxian's friends were everywhere in the world. This was true. No one who befriended LV Fengxian had ever said anything bad about him. Even people like Ying Bailu, who didn't have much of a relationship with Lu Fengxian and could only be considered acquaintances, were the same. Even though Lu Fengxian had stolen the person he loved, for some reason, Ying Bailu only felt disappointment and sadness. He didn't feel any hatred in his heart. Yan Fian and Lin Fengya knew this, but they judged him by their own standards. They thought that this kind of friendship was just a dream. It was just a little better than fair-weather friends. When Lu Fengxian's essence, qi, and spirit were devoured and her cultivation was crippled, who would be willing to stand up for him since they weren't from the same sect or family? Jianghu was just that realistic, so Lin Fengya and Yan Fian did not even consider that someone would stand up for Lu Fengxian, who was all alone. Even though Chu Xiu had warned Yan Fian before, she did not take it to heart. But now they were filled with regret. If they didn't plot against Lu Fengxian, they would at most let the sword spirit go into hibernation, and their Yu Palace would think of other methods. In the end, after scheming against Lu Fengxian, their Yu Palace's final life-saving trump card was gone. At this time, Yan Fian was resisting the sword formation while pleading to Lu Fengxian. "Fengxian, help me, make Chu Xiu stop. This matter is our Yu Palace's fault. After this, I can promise you anything you want. Whatever Chu Xiu wants, our Yu Palace will also agree. I just hope that you can make him stop." But at this time, Lu Fengxian looked at Yan Fian as if she was a stranger. He shook his head and said, "Miss Yan, please call me Lu Fengxian. Also, Brother Chu is standing up for me now. If I make him stop, wouldn't I be letting down Brother Chu's kind intentions? Some things are wrong. I can trust a person, but I won't forgive a person. If you had told me the truth, even if I had to beg Brother Chu or Brother Xie, I would definitely have thought of a way to help your Yu Palace get through this crisis. But now it's too late." Lu Fengxian was passionate, but he wasn't an idiot. From the moment he stepped into the martial Dao Grandmaster realm, he had already cut off all relations with Yan Fian. The two of them were completely strangers. Even if Yan Fian really wanted to risk her life and threaten Chu Xiu, Lu Fengxian would even have the intention to kill her. Yan Fian made a wrong choice. She neglected Lu Fengxian's greatest value, which was Lu Fengxian's true connections. It was true that Chu Xiu hated the Yu Palace, and Xie Xiaolu had no relationship with the Yu Palace, but as long as Lu Fengxian asked, they were willing to sell Lu Fengxian a favor. Whether it was Chu Xiu's current forces or the faraway West Chu's World Alliance, it was too easy to protect the Yu Palace. It was a pity that Yan Fian or the Yu Palace bought the casket and returned the pearls, and did such a stupid thing. And at this time, the remnant soul of the nine-tailed celestial fox, which had been severely injured by Chu Xiu's sea-breaker saber, had already gone mad. Its eyes were crimson red, and the aura around it was extremely violent. At the location of its 9 tails that had been cut off, 9 streams of mental energy seemed to have solidified, extending and extending endlessly. In the end, it actually turned into a large net that covered the sky and covered the earth, enveloping Chu Xiu. The nine-tailed celestial fox was most proficient in mental energy attacks. However, it was currently in the state of a remnant soul. Previously, it had used its own power to guide the power of heaven and earth to attack, which consumed very little of its remnant soul. But now, it had already begun to consume the power source of its remnant soul. One could imagine that this nine-tailed celestial fox was already starting to fight with its life on the line. Sheathing the saber and forming a seal, the soul-extinguishing arrow was unleashed. The whistling mental energy exploded, but the consecutive arrows were actually unable to completely penetrate the large net of mental energy. At this time, Lu Jianghu said casually, It turned out to be that Kid Nangong Wuming's 9 forms of soul assimilation. You actually know the techniques of the Demon Heart Hall. Chu Xiu ignored Lu Jianghu, but at this time, Lu Jianghu chuckled and said, Kid, why don't we make a deal? You lure this beast into an illusion, then use your mental energy to connect to the blood soul bead and pull me into the illusion as well. I'll help you subdue this evil beast. It's simple and saves time. How about this? Chu Xiu said lightly, Do you think I'm an idiot, or do you think I can't kill this beast? Since I can kill such a powerful remnant soul myself, why should I let you swallow it to restore your strength? The soul-extinguishing arrow could not penetrate this large net, but Chu Xiu had already used the combination of the extinguishing heaven and earth soul transfer technique and the 9 forms of soul assimilation to the extreme, completely using his mental energy to fight the nine-tailed celestial fox head-on. This beast's strength was indeed not simple. It was already weakened to this state, but it still had such strength. But for Chu Xiu, dealing with it was only a matter of time. The longer it took, the weaker the nine-tailed celestial fox's strength would be. Seeing that Chu Xiu was getting more and more ruthless, Lu Jianghu hurriedly said, All right, I owe you. I'll give you something to exchange for it, how about it? You're mine now. What are you going to give me in exchange? Lu Jianghu gritted his teeth and said, My holy church's secret place with hidden treasures, do you want to exchange? In the past, my holy church's branches were spread all over the Jianghu. Naturally, there were many secret places. Not all of them were thrown on Kunlun Mountain. The things that I personally buried back then, other than me, no one else knows. You also don't have to worry that I'll threaten you after swallowing that remnant soul. The blood soul bead is in your hands. That's like a prison. Unless you take the initiative to break the cage and let me out, letting me obtain the body, otherwise, a remnant soul of mine won't be able to threaten you. Chu Xiu was actually waiting for Lu Jianghu to say this. Although he had squeezed out the blood divine demonic technique from Lu Jianghu, he also knew that Lu Jianghu must still have many secrets or good things. If he didn't squeeze him dry and maximize his remaining value, wouldn't he be at a loss? So when he heard Lu Jianghu say this, Chu Xiu's figure immediately moved forward. The power of his primordial spirit was exerted to the maximum, and completely integrated with the spiritual power net formed by the nine-tailed celestial fox. He took the initiative to pull the remnant soul into his own spiritual world. The nine-tailed celestial fox was very puzzled by Chu Xiu's actions. The ferocious beasts of its lineage were powerful to begin with, but they were most proficient in mental strength. However, Chu Xiu had taken the initiative to pull it into the mental world, using its weak point to attack its strong point. Wasn't this courting death? In the misty spiritual world, the nine-tailed celestial fox's huge body seemed to cover the sky. Its 9 tails that had been cut off by Chu Xiu had already recovered, and it smiled at Chu Xiu ferociously. However, at this moment, a middle-aged man appeared beside Chu Xiu. Blood danced around him as he smiled sinisterly at the nine-tailed celestial fox. Little thing, it's been a long time since we last met. Do you still recognize me? The moment it saw Lu Jianghu, the nine-tailed celestial fox's smile gradually disappeared, and a look of horror appeared in its eyes. It was born in ancient times, and in order to avoid the great ancient calamity, it used a secret method to sleep underground. It could be said that even if it didn't really live for 10,000 years, it was at least an existence that had lived for thousands of years. In all these years, the thing it didn't want to recall the most was the days when it was a pet in the Kunlun devil cult, being watched and played by everyone. Except for the extremely mysterious cult leader, it had seen almost everyone else. And among these people, Jianghu was the most excessive. The others were at most watching something new. After all, the nine-tailed celestial fox had become extinct during the Great Ancient Calamity. It was estimated that there was only one left in the world. At that time, although the Kunlun devil cult had dominated the entire pugilistic world, they had not seen a powerful ferocious beast comparable to the mysterious realm of heaven and earth. However, these people only watched and never took action. Only Jianghu used all kinds of means to play with it all day long. He even said that he was studying ferocious beasts and developing new techniques. It was a time that was unbearable to recall. So now, when the nine-tailed celestial fox saw Jianghu, it still felt a little afraid. However, after the fear, the nine-tailed celestial fox suddenly remembered why it should be afraid. The Kunlun devil cult had been destroyed for hundreds of years, and those terrifying people were already dead. Even if this guy in front of it had become a remnant soul like it, what did it have to be afraid of? So, the nine-tailed celestial fox roared angrily, and the nine tails behind it expanded, as if they covered the sky and the sun, and its momentum was monstrous. Chu Xiu glanced at Jianghu and said, "Can you do it or not? You can easily exhaust it outside, but you have to bring this beast here and add to the trouble." Jianghu sneered and said, "Don't worry, I never do things that I am not confident of." As soon as he finished speaking, Jianghu directly formed a seal with both hands. There was no special aura, but at this time, on the head of the nine-tailed celestial fox, a red lotus bloomed. The red lotus was as red as blood, and as it bloomed, it was constantly weakening the power of the nine-tailed celestial fox. When the red lotus bloomed completely, the power of the nine-tailed celestial fox had been suppressed to the point of almost nothingness. Its entire body became the size of a husky, and it looked quite cute. Chapter 774. In the past, the strength of the Kunlun devil cult was far beyond many people's expectations. If it wasn't for the fact that the old celestial master was born in that era, others wouldn't be able to understand the true strength of the Kunlun devil cult just by hearsay. They were both at the mysterious heaven and earth realm, but Yi Xiaonan was able to defeat both Su Si and the Ying family's patriarch, Ying Si, at the same time. This proved that no matter what realm a martial artist reached, there was a huge gap. In the past, the Kunlun devil cult was the same. The four demon lords were definitely experts in the mysterious heaven and earth realm. The Red Lotus Demon Lord had easily captured the nine-tailed celestial fox and locked it up like a pet. Of course, he had done something. The Red Lotus Demon Lord had done something to the nine-tailed celestial fox's soul remnant to prevent it from running around. That's right, the Red Lotus Demon Lord wasn't even worried that it would escape. He was only worried that it would run around. Other than the Red Lotus Demon Lord himself, only Jianghu knew about this. Of course, this didn't mean that Jianghu was close to the Red Lotus Demon Lord. It was only because Jianghu wanted to study the nine-tailed celestial fox, so he asked the Red Lotus Demon Lord for it. He didn't expect it to come in handy now. Jianghu waved his hand, and the Red Lotus Demon Lord completely wrapped the nine-tailed celestial fox. It shrank to the size of a palm and returned to Jianghu's hand. Done. Chu Xiu narrowed his eyes. The talkative fake demon lord had been hiding something from him. He had always known about this trick, but he had never said it. Even if the nine-tailed celestial fox was stronger than it was now, strong enough to kill Chu Xiu, Jianghu wouldn't have said it. Chu Xiu's blood soul bead wouldn't break even if he died. If he fell into someone else's hands, he might be able to trick them into letting him out. So why did he say it? Of course, Chu Xiu did not pursue Jianghu's petty thoughts. This kind of thing was very normal. On the contrary, with Jianghu's character, it would be strange if he always behaved himself. After coming out of the spiritual world, the nine-tailed celestial fox's aura had completely dissipated. Even the celestial sword, which was the vessel, had lost its luster. This thing was originally used as a container to hold the nine-tailed celestial fox. Now that the thing inside was gone, it naturally lost its value. Meanwhile, in the outside world, Lin Fengya stared blankly at all of this. Her eyes were still filled with disbelief. The sword soul of their Yu palace was gone just like that? At this moment, Lin Fengya even felt that she was the Yu palace's sinner. The Yu palace would definitely decline in her generation. Whether it was Lin Fengya or the entire Yu palace, they had already reached a dead end. The Yu palace had a long history, but in reality, the ancestor of the Yu palace, the Yu, was not their true ancestor. This was because the Yu had never intended to accept disciples. According to the legends, the Yu sword technique was a gift from heaven. She only used a bamboo pole to defeat numerous experts in the pugilistic world. However, the true Yu sword technique was not passed down by the Yu. Instead, she had casually given a few pointers to a little girl who was being bullied and left. That little girl was the true ancestor of the Yu palace. Therefore, from the beginning, the Yu sword technique of the Yu palace was incomplete. At the same time, it was utilitarian. It was far inferior to the true Yu sword technique of the Yu palace. Only a few exceptional geniuses could comprehend the true essence of the Yu sword technique from these incomplete sword techniques. Therefore, the Yu palace's early days were actually like this. Strength was all up to fate. However, at some point in time, the Yu palace gradually became utilitarian. They were no longer willing to wait for a good disciple to appear. Instead, they wanted to be like the other sects and have stable strength. The existence of the nine-tailed celestial fox was a mistake of the Yu palace. The Yu palace's trump card was actually their Yu sword technique. As long as they put effort into it, they would have everything. In the end, the Yu palace placed everything on external objects. They became less and less interested in the Yu sword technique. The Yu palace's current state was their own fault. Of course, Lin Fengya would not admit to these things. Even if it was her fault, in her heart, Chu Xiu had become the culprit who destroyed the Yu palace's trump card. Chu Xiu, the Yu palace will not rest until you are dead. Lin Fengya roared angrily. Sword chi swirled around her, and there were even blood-colored shadows coiling around her blade. When the sword slashed out, the biting sharpness instantly tore the formation apart. It went straight for Chu Xiu. Chu Xiu couldn't help but sneer when he saw that Lin Fengya was actually burning her essence blood to kill him. The Yu palace's Yu sword technique was a sword bestowed by the heavens. The weaker one's mental state was, the closer they were to the will of heaven and earth. Only then would they be able to unleash their greatest power. At this moment, Lin Fengya's mental state was in a mess. All that was left was hatred and killing. The sword intent she used was completely different from the Yu sword technique. It would be strange if she could unleash its true power. Of course, even if she was at her peak, she would not be Chu Xiu's match. There was no difference. The heavenly demon dance slashed down with dense demonic chi. There were faint wails of hungry ghosts within it. It devoured the sword chi. With a boom, it shattered Lin Fengya's sword and even sent her flying. She coughed up a mouthful of blood. Looking at Lin Fengya, Chu Xiu's eyes were also filled with killing intent. At this moment, he was indeed only helping LV Fengxian vent her anger. Doing this much was actually already enough. However, Chu Xiu's personality was like this. Either he didn't do it, or he did it to the extreme. He destroyed the Yu palace's sword soul, causing them to lose their trump card. It was certain that they would not be able to recover from this setback. However, it was not enough. Chu Xiu even wanted to destroy the Yu palace. Anyway, he had already offended the Yu palace. If he did not make a move now, it would be troublesome to leave behind an enemy who secretly hated him. In for a penny, in for a pound. He would destroy the Yu palace. Of course, Chu Xiu could not do it himself. After all, there was still Yan Fian. Chu Xiu also had to consider Lu Fengxian's feelings. However, Yan Fian could not be killed. Chu Xiu had no qualms about killing Lin Fengya. Although Chu Xiu rarely killed women, when he really wanted to kill someone, there was no difference between men and women in his eyes. Demonic chi lingered on the heavenly demon dance as it slashed towards Lin Fengya. The demonic chi blade engulfed everything. It looked like this blade was about to behead Lin Fengya. However, at this moment, a long sword shining with pure yang energy suddenly appeared in front of Lin Fengya. The sword split into three and the three sword lights merged into one, blocking Chu Xiu's blade. However, the pure yang energy also dissipated. The old Taoist priest from the pure Yang Dao sect snorted coldly and said, "Chu Xiu, don't think that you can behave atrociously as you wish just because the demonic Dao managed to escape the calamity in this war between the righteous and demonic Dao. It's not like there's no one in the righteous Dao sect." There were too many things involved in the Yu Palace incident. The old Taoist from the Chunyang Dao sect was not an idiot. He could naturally see that something was wrong. If it was someone else, the old Taoist from the Chunyang Dao sect would definitely not intervene. However, the person who appeared in front of him was Chu Xiu. Chunyang Dao sect had a great enmity with Chu Xiu. He had no reason to not make a move. Moreover, the Yu Palace belonged to the righteous Dao sect, while Chu Xiu belonged to the demonic Dao sect. There were so many people here today, but they allowed Chu Xiu, a fellow from the demonic Dao, to be so arrogant. It was simply preposterous. Sun Qili and Sun Qifan of the Sun clan looked at each other and walked out as well. Sun Qili coughed and said, "Chu Xiu, where it is possible to forgive, one should forgive. There are so many people here, do you really want to destroy the Yu Palace?" The people from the Jiangdong Sun clan had always been low-key and slick. They would not be like the old Taoist from the Chunyang Dao sect who stood out to protect Lin Fengya. However, it was not a problem for them to exert some pressure on Chu Xiu from the back. Let people off when possible? Hehe, the only thing that I, Chu Xiu, can spare is a dead person. As soon as he finished speaking, the spirit power condensed in Chu Xiu's hand. The soul-destroying arrows shot out consecutively towards the old Taoist from the Chunyang Dao sect. Today, he was determined to kill Lin Fengya. It was a joke if they thought they could stop him with just a few stray chickens and stray dogs. If Chu Xiu was really angered, he would kill the old Taoist as well. After all, he had killed more than one or two Chunyang Dao sect martial artists. The old Taoist from the Chunyang Dao sect snorted coldly. Under his control, the three Dao swords formed the three talents sword formation. In an instant, pure yang energy flourished and illuminated the entire hall in a golden color. The soul-extinguishing arrow was a spiritual attack, but the three great sword array was quite miraculous. Under the attack of the pure yang gang qi, the power of the soul-extinguishing arrow was reduced by 90%. The old Taoist priest could easily withstand the remaining power. Chu Xiu took a step forward and the demonic flames around him surged into the sky. The sea-breaking saber slashed down. The saber aura that could devour everything seemed to drown the entire hall. It was sharp and turbulent. Before the saber aura arrived, the saber intent had already sent chills down everyone's spine. This could be said to be the ultimate power of the saber slashed down. The three-talent sword formation shattered with a loud bang. The old Taoist vomited blood and retreated. Sun Qifan and Sun Qili formed a fist seal and instantly condensed cold ice energy into a shield. They placed it in front of the old Taoist from the Chunyang Dao sect to help him block the remaining erosion of the saber intent. With a loud bang, the ice shield shattered. The endless chill spread towards Chu Xiu as if it wanted to freeze the heaven and earth essence qi. Chu Xiu took a step forward expressionlessly and executed the great sun-changing technique. The demonic aura dissipated and only the scorching Buddha's light covered the sky. Vairocana's shadow hovered behind Chu Xiu. His hand formed the colorless sealing palm seal and instantly strangled everything. Palm strike after palm strike landed. The crushing power caused the Sun brothers to retreat step by step. Their expressions changed drastically. Chu Xiu's power was so strong that it was unreasonable. After retreating more than 100 feet, they suddenly heard a whistling sound. Their expressions changed abruptly. However, before they could react, the soul-destroying arrows had already penetrated Lin Fengya's brain. Her face instantly turned pale. In the blink of an eye, she lost all signs of life. She was killed on the spot by Chu Xiu. Chapter 775. Lin Fengya's death caused the entire Yu Palace to fall into silence. Almost everyone was dumbfounded, and some people didn't even have time to react. The Yu Palace was a member of the 5 major sword sects and a major righteous Dao sect. There were many righteous Dao martial artists who were invited to participate in the sword welcoming conference, and these people didn't really think of watching from the sidelines. Previously, they were still thinking of letting the old Taoist from the Chunyang Dao sect and the Sun brothers exhaust Chu Xiu first. Then, at the critical moment, they would save Lin Fengya and force Chu Xiu to not dare to fight to the death. That way, the matter would be resolved perfectly. After all, 99% of the people here were from righteous Dao sections. Letting a guy like Chu Xiu, who had just made a name for himself in the righteous Dao war, be so presumptuous here would not look good on their faces. However, who would have thought that Chu Xiu would act so quickly that it was beyond their imagination? Before they could prepare to make a move, Lin Fengya had already been beheaded. Moreover, when Chu Xiu fought 1 against 3, his power was simply unstoppable. If 1 or 2 ordinary people went up, they would simply be courting death. So now, Chu Xiu was standing in the main hall of the Yu Palace, a righteous Dao sect, killing wantonly, but not a single person stood up. The entire place was incomparably quiet. After the old Taoist from the Chunyang Dao sect was injured, he didn't make another move. It was true that he wanted to kill the devil, Chu Xiu, but Lin Fengya was already dead, and the others didn't make a move. If he went up alone, it would be no different from courting death. The Sun brothers even silently retreated to the side. At the same time, they glared fiercely at Sun Zhangming, meaning to not find trouble with Chu Xiu in the future. Otherwise, the consequences would be unpredictable. Chu Xiu's eyes narrowed as he swept his gaze over everyone present. His imposing aura caused everyone present to be unable to meet his gaze. Sensing that something was wrong with the atmosphere, Fang Qishao poked Luo Feiheng and whispered, "Hey, don't tell me that Chu Xiu is addicted to killing and wants to kill everyone here?" To be honest, although there were many martial artists who came to participate in the sword welcoming meet, apart from Chu Xiu, there was no one from the righteous sects who were famous in the Jianghu and even ranked on the Fengyun list. The Yu Palace had already been weakened to such a state. Considering that the other party was a righteous sect, one of the 5 great sword sects, with an invitation from the Yu Palace, all the great sects would give face to the Yu Palace. As long as they had free martial artists, they would send them to participate in the sword welcoming assembly. Therefore, almost all the warriors who came to participate in the sword welcoming assembly had a certain status and strength in the sect, but they were not famous. If Chu Xiu really wanted to get rid of all of them, with the help of the formation that Shui Wuxiang had tampered with, it was really not a difficult task. On the other side, Luo Feiheng shrugged and said, "Who knows? Anyway, I know that guy could really do such a thing." But fortunately, Chu Xiu was not that crazy. With so many martial arts masters, if they were forced into a corner, they would put aside all their prejudices and attack together, which could really bring trouble to Chu Xiu. Most importantly, this was Eastern Qi, and this time, 90% of the martial artists who came to participate in the sword welcoming assembly were from Eastern Qi. Once Chu Xiu let one of them escape, the other party would spread the news that Chu Xiu had killed all the martial artists who came to participate in the sword welcoming assembly. Before Chu Xiu returned to northern Yen, he would be endlessly hunted. Probably even the moon-worshipping cult did not have such a high profile, coming here to cause trouble right after the righteous and demonic path war, and making such a big scene. The disciples of the Yu Palace looked at Chu Xiu with a face full of hatred, but no one dared to come forward to die. Their palace lord was killed by Chu Xiu, so what was the use of them coming forward? At this time, Yan Fian had a dull look on her face, as if she still could not believe what had happened in front of her. "You should be glad that I am a person who has tender and protective feelings for the fairer sex, and I don't kill women. But what the Yu Palace has done is a little too much, so let the people of the pugilistic world judge it. Don't worry, the details of the Yu Palace will spread throughout the pugilistic world by the next day. I have a good relationship with the vice leader of the wind-sweeping building, Shi Yuanli, so I believe he will be very happy to spread such good gossip." Chu Xiu said this slowly, but Yan Fian suddenly trembled. She looked at Chu Xiu with endless fear in her eyes, and said hatefully, "Chu Xiu, you're ruthless. Chu Xiu did not kill them now, but he did not leave the Yunnu Palace a way out. Lin Fengya was dead, and the Yunnu Palace's trump card, the sword spirit, was also gone. Right now, the Yunnu Palace could be said to be at its weakest. Therefore, the Yunnu Palace's only hope was their reputation as one of the 5 great sword sects, as well as the connections they had accumulated as a righteous sect. They were all women, and if they came to ask for help, there would probably be a lot of people who would agree to help them. But now, Chu Xiu had completely extinguished this hope of theirs. Chu Xiu had the wind-sweeping buildings spread all this to destroy their reputation. At that time, no one would be willing to help a Yunnu palace with a bad reputation. Moreover, over the years, the Yunnu palace had offended many people. Now that those people knew that the Yunnu palace's trump card had been completely crippled, and their reputation was also bad, even if they targeted the Yunnu palace, no one would meddle. How could those people let the Yunnu palace off? Therefore, Yan Fian could imagine what the Yunnu palace would face next. It would only delay the destruction of the Yunnu palace. Yan Fian looked at Lu Fengxian in despair. Right now, the only person who could save the Yunnu palace and make Chu Xiu stop was Lu Fengxian. Chu Xiu wanted to vent for Lu Fengxian, but the Yunnu palace was already crippled, and Lin Fengya was already dead. Could it be that he would only be satisfied when the Yunnu palace was destroyed? But Lu Fengxian only sighed softly and stood up. Under Yan Fian's expectant gaze, he said to Chu Xiu, "Brother Chu, let's go." Chu Xiu nodded, waved his hand, and led everyone away with large strides. In the entire area, no one dared to stop them, and no one dared to say a word. Seeing Yan Fian's gaze turn from expectant to despair, Feng Qishao couldn't help but shake his head. "You're too smart for your own good. Why bother?" Feng Qishao and Yan Fian could actually be considered old acquaintances. Both of them were outstanding figures of the younger generation of the 5 great sword sects, and were both groomed as heirs. Therefore, the two of them had already known each other many years ago. In the past, Sword King City even wanted to matchmake Feng Qishao and Yan Fian, but due to the rules of the Yunnu Palace, this matter was quickly dropped. Moreover, at that time, Feng Qishao discovered that Yan Fian was not a woman who was easy to deal with. She was too scheming. In the end, the dignified fairy Cloud's word had fallen to such a state. Even the Yunnu Palace didn't know when it would be destroyed. Of course, all of this could only be said to be Yan Fian's fault. The Yunnu Palace only had itself to blame. He didn't have the slightest intention to speak up for the Yunnu Palace. After walking out of the Yunnu Palace, Lu Fengxian bowed deeply to Chu Xiu. "Brother Chu, thank you very much this time." Chu Xiu shook his head and said, "If we say thanks to each other, it would be too formal. Back then, when I was besieged by so many people from the Righteous Tao Alliance, you also helped me without thinking." Lu Fengxian smiled bitterly. "It's not the same. Back then, even without me, Brother Chu, you could still get through the crisis. But this time, without Brother Chu, I'm afraid I would be miserable." Don't look at how Lu Fengxian stepped into the martial Dao Grandmaster realm on the spot. In fact, without Chu Xiu, Lu Fengxian's situation would be equally dangerous. Having just stepped into the martial Dao Grandmaster realm, Lu Fengxian was actually in the most dangerous stage. Without seclusion to sort out her power, Lu Fengxian couldn't control the martial Dao true core in her body at all. So at that time, if Lin Fengya had made up her mind and completely shed all pretense of cordiality, and joined forces with the 9-tailed celestial fox to forcefully devour Lu Fengxian's essence, qi, and spirit, he also couldn't resist. At the side, Luo Feiheng couldn't help but say, "I say, Brother Lu, it's not that I want to criticize you, but since you knew the consequences would be terrible, why did you trust that woman so easily? Even if you were a little more cautious, this situation wouldn't have happened. Beautiful women are the best at lying. Brother Lu, you're not being lustful. You know it's a pit of fire, but you still jumped in. You want to see if it's hot or not." Lu Fengxian looked at Luo Feiheng and said very seriously, "You're also very beautiful, but would you lie to me? If someone told me that you wanted to harm me, I wouldn't believe them either. Whether there's fire in the pit of fire or not, you can only find out by jumping in. If you suspect someone you trust without knowing if there's fire in the pit of fire, then the fire in your heart will be extinguished, and it will make one's heart cold. Luo Feiheng was speechless and didn't know what to say. She slapped her head and waved her hand. Forget it, I can't persuade you anymore. To be honest, I've never seen someone as lucky as you to be able to live until now without being cheated to death. Brother Lu, you should really go and pray to the gods and bodhisattvas. At the side, Chu Xiu didn't mind. In the original plot, Lu Fengxian was cheated even more miserably. Now, Lu Fengxian was only schemed against by the Yu Palace. In the original plot, Lu Fengxian took the blame for Nie Donglu and was treated as the successor of the Kunlun devil cult. She was chased by the righteous sects for a long time. Of course, this situation was impossible to happen now. Nie Donglio's grave would probably have fruits growing on it. Brother Lu, come back to the Suppression Martial Hall with me for this period of time. Stabilize your realm first, said Chu Xiu. After stepping into the Martial Dao Grandmaster realm, one would need a period of closed-door cultivation to stabilize their realm. At this time, one would need a safe place, and Chu Xiu's Suppression Martial Hall was very suitable. At the side, Feng Qishao interrupted, I want to go too. Brother Lu, you and Ing Bailu have cheated me badly. Both of you have stepped into the Martial Dao Grandmaster realm one after another. If I return to Sword King City now, I'll probably be cursed to death by those old men. Chu Xiu glanced at Feng Qishao. It doesn't matter if you die sooner or later. Even if you go back after breaking through to the Martial Dao Grandmaster realm, you'll still be cursed. As the saying goes, the earlier you die, the earlier you reincarnate. The longer you drag it out, the more cursed you'll be when you return. As a person, be more open-minded. At least among the martial artists of your generation, there's still Li Feilian who hasn't stepped into the Martial Dao Grandmaster realm. He'll be accompanying you. Chapter 776. Before Chu Xiu returned to Northern Yen, he made a trip to Wind's Sweeping Tower. Since he said he was going to destroy the Yu Palace, he had to do it. Even if he didn't do it himself, Chu Xiu had to add fuel to the fire. The vice leader of Wind's Sweeping Tower, three-eyed god Qi Yuanli, could be considered an old acquaintance of Chu Xiu. He had even watched Chu Xiu grow up. In the past, Chu Xiu was just an ordinary wandering cultivator. But now, Chu Xiu had grown into an existence that Qi Yuanli could look up to. So when he saw Chu Xiu again, Qi Yuanli couldn't help but sigh. Of course, Chu Xiu had a good impression of Qi Yuanli. This vice leader's personality was in line with Wind's Sweeping Tower's position. Wind's Sweeping Tower didn't participate in the disputes of the Jianghu. They were just a collector of information and a recorder of the history of the Jianghu. Selling information was just a way for Wind's Sweeping Tower to make a living. If they did not sell information, there was no way Wind's Sweeping Tower could afford to support such a large number of news agents in the world of martial artists. They also had a messaging matrix that was spread all over the world of martial artists, which allowed any news to spread through the entire world of martial artists within a day. But all of this was just a way to make a living. Wind's Sweeping Tower wanted to be the witness of the prosperous Jianghu. They didn't want to miss any details. Official Chu, what information do you want to buy this time? But let me say this first. The current situation is sensitive. Some information about some big sections. Even if you want to buy it, I won't dare to sell it. Although Wind's Sweeping Tower treated all customers equally, Qi Yuanli still felt a headache when he saw Chu Xiu at this time. Not long after the war between the righteous and demonic factions, Chu Xiu jumped out to cause trouble. He was so high profile that he didn't put anyone in his eyes. Qi Yuanli already knew what happened in the Yu Palace before Chu Xiu came. After all, Wind's Sweeping Tower's information spread faster than Chu Xiu's legs. However, there were still some details that Qi Yuanli didn't know, so in his opinion, this time it was Chu Xiu who was stirring up trouble. Chu Xiu sat in front of Qi Yuanli and shook his head. Tower Lord Qi, there's no need to be nervous. I'm not here to buy information, I'm here to give you a piece of information. What news? The truth about the Yu Palace incident. Chu Xiu said word by word. Upon hearing Chu Xiu's words, Qi Yuanli immediately perked up. Oh, so there's something else going on? The Yu Nu Palace's sword welcoming assembly was held once every 100 years. It wasn't some grand event of the Jianghu, and it didn't have any definite connection with other martial artists. Therefore, Wind Sweeping Tower did not pay much attention to the entire sword welcoming assembly. Wind Sweeping Tower had heard about what had happened in the Yu Nu Palace from the other cultivators who had participated in the sword welcoming meet, so it wasn't comprehensive. After Chu Xiu told Qi Yuanli what had happened, Qi Yuanli couldn't help but sigh. To be honest, he didn't expect the Yu Nu Palace to have such a secret. 500 years ago, many righteous sects had divided the Kunlun devil cult, and the good stuff had already been taken by those peak sections. Although the Yu Nu Palace's strength was not bad, and the Yu Nu Palace from 500 years ago was even stronger than it was now, and it had produced true fire spirit refinement realm experts, but compared to those peak sects, it was still lacking. Therefore, everyone thought that the good stuff didn't fall into the hands of the Yu Nu Palace. Who would have thought that the Yu Nu Palace would take a different path and find an ornamental object, with the remnant soul of an ancient fierce beast sealed within? One had to know that the remnant soul of a heaven and earth profound understanding realm fierce beast was a treasure that couldn't be replicated. It was definitely not inferior to other treasures. It could only be said that the Kunlun devil cult was too strong, to the point that they could treat treasures as playthings. Moreover, Qi Yunli sighed in his heart at the Yu Nu Palace's actions over the years. They had clearly gone astray. They pursued the power in front of them too much, and in the end, they neglected the sect's future. In the past 500 years, the Yu Nu Palace had sacrificed 5 young elites that could be ranked on the Dragon and Tiger leaderboard. Although these young elites might not become great figures that could stir up the world in the future, they at least had the possibility. In the end, the Yu Nu Palace sacrificed them, and this possibility was completely cut off. In this generation, the Yu Nu Palace could be said to be extremely weak. In the end, they still did such a stupid thing and angered Chu Xiu. Now, the Yu Nu Palace probably wouldn't have a next generation. Qi Yuanli collected all kinds of information in the world all day long, and he was very clear about Chu Xiu's plans. He immediately understood that Chu Xiu wanted to kill with a borrowed knife. Once the news about the Yu Nu Palace spread, its reputation would be ruined. Those who had enmity with the Yu Nu Palace, or even those who didn't have enmity with the Yu Nu Palace, no one could guarantee what they would do. However, Qi Yuanli didn't resist this kind of thing. What Wind Sweeping Tower wanted was information and the truth. As for what this information and the truth would bring, it wasn't something Wind Sweeping Tower could control. Moreover, Wind Sweeping Tower wasn't afraid of the Yu Nu Palace coming to find trouble. To put it bluntly, with the current strength of the Yu Nu Palace, they weren't even afraid of the anemophilia that specialized in intelligence. Qi Yuanli showed a tacit smile to Chu Xiu and said, "Official Chu's information is quite useful. Tomorrow, Wind Sweeping Tower's headline will be the secret of the Yu Nu Palace, as well as 3 Dragon and Tiger leaderboard elites stepping into the Martial Dao Grandmaster realm in a short few days. I reckon that this news will definitely shock the entire world." Feng Qishao said gloomily, "Tower Lord Qi, you're wrong. I haven't stepped into the Martial Dao Grandmaster realm." As Feng Qishao said that, he cursed inwardly. This Qi Yuanli's math isn't good, but his eyes aren't good either? Can't he tell that I'm not a Martial Dao Grandmaster? Qi Yuanli chuckled. Young Master Feng must be joking. I'm not the Tower Lord, I'm only the Vice Tower Lord. Also, I didn't calculate wrongly. Ing Bailu, Little Marquis Wen, and Li Feilian have all stepped into the Martial Dao Grandmaster realm in the past few days. Of course, it's 3 of them. What did you say? Li Feilian has also become a Martial Dao Grandmaster? Feng Qishao's expression was no longer F** King a dog, it was simply F** King a dog. Qi Yuanli nodded and said, "It was yesterday's news. Li Feilian battled the Chunyang Dao sect's Martial Dao Grandmaster Huanyangzi in West Chu and killed him with 3 slashes, stepping into the Martial Dao Grandmaster realm." Feng Qishao's expression was wooden. He could not even be bothered to say "if** seek" at this moment. At this moment, Feng Qishao even felt that the entire world was against him. Chu Xiu was also slightly speechless by the side. To be honest, Fang Qishao had actually gone further than Ing Bailu and Lu Fengxian. After so many years, who had seen Fang Qishao fight to the death and unleash his full strength. However, breaking through to the martial Dao Grandmaster realm required time and opportunity. In the past, Fang Qishao did not take such things seriously and was not in a hurry. In fact, he had even touched the threshold several times, but he felt that he did not accumulate enough, so he did not take that step. In the end, when he felt that he had accumulated enough and wanted to take that step, the bottleneck was even higher than before. After being surpassed by 3 people in a row, Fang Qishao really did not want to return to Sword King City at this moment. He estimated that once he returned, he would not be able to leave until he stepped into the martial Dao Grandmaster realm. After leaving Wind Sweeping Building, Chu Xiu took Lu Fengxian back to Northern Yen. Fang Qishao did not follow them and returned to Sword King City directly. Although Fang Qishao said that he did not want to return to Sword King City, he still went back and took the initiative to go into closed-door cultivation. This time, Chu Xiu could see that Fang Qishao's pride seemed to have been hurt. Even if Fang Qishao did not care much about being surpassed by the people behind him as the first on the Longhu list, he still cared about his pride. Don't be fooled by the fact that he was always laughing and joking all day long, as if he didn't care about anything, but he still had a competitive heart. In the past, he did not work hard and left everything to fate. But this time, Fang Qishao was really ready to take it seriously. As Chu Xiu returned to Northern Yen, the news of Wind Sweeping Building also spread throughout the underworld. The fact that 3 Longhu list prodigies stepped into the martial Dao Grandmaster realm did not cause too much of a stir. What really caused a stir was the truth of the Yu Palace's sword welcoming assembly. It was not a good thing to talk about. In any case, the Yu Palace's reputation plummeted in a day. This matter even caused many people to discuss whether the immediate benefits were more important or the sect's future development. Although most people were denouncing the Yu Palace's short-sightedness, in fact, most people knew that if they were in their shoes, they would most likely make the same choice. If their sect could be as powerful as Sword King City, they naturally would not exchange their own disciples for immediate benefits. For a sect like Sword King City, they could afford to raise a rare genius in the Sword Dao like the 7th young Master Fang. They could also afford to raise a young disciple like Lin Kaiyan, whose talent could only be considered decent. But for some ordinary forces, they could afford to raise such geniuses, but there was no guarantee that they would become supreme powerhouses who could stir up the underworld in the future. On the contrary, if they were sacrificed to the 9-tailed fox, they could obtain the 9-tailed fox's protection for 100 years. As long as they successfully devoured the martial artist's mental qi, the 9-tailed fox's remnant soul at its peak could even exert power stronger than a true fire spirit refinement powerhouse. Everyone wanted to have a long-term vision, but unfortunately, the price of having a long-term vision was how they should get through the crisis in front of them. Of course, these things were not what Chu Xiu would consider. He had already laid out the trap. Only God knew how long the Yu Palace could last. However, just as Chu Xiu returned to Martial Suppression Hall in Northern Yen, Mei Qinglian came to find him. She heaved a long sigh and said, "You're finally back. That old guy Xiang Long has sent people to urge you several times recently. I'm afraid the Imperial Court won't allow you to delay." Chapter 777. Before Chu Xiu went to Eastern Qi, Xiang Long had looked for him and asked him to go to the Great Light Temple to garrison. However, Chu Xiu had rejected the request and did not take it seriously. Xiang Long wanted to provoke the Great Light Temple at this time, but Chu Xiu did not want to be the knife in his hand. Originally, Chu Xiu had thought that by going to Eastern Qi and purposely evading the matter, he would be able to get away with it. He did not expect Xiang Long to still insist on going to the Temple of Great Light to station troops there. There was no value in the bitter cold of the far north. Apart from angering the Great Light Temple, there was basically no benefit to the Northern Yen court. At this time, there was movement outside the Jianghu Hall. A eunuch from the palace walked in. When he saw Chu Xiu, his eyes suddenly lit up and he quickly said, "Official Chu, His Majesty has been waiting for you for a long time. Now that you have finally returned from Eastern Qi, His Majesty invites you to the palace for a discussion. Chu Xiu shook his head gently. This time, he might not be able to avoid it. Therefore, he asked Mei Qinglian to help make arrangements for Lu Fengxian while he followed the eunuch to the palace. In the main hall of the Northern Yan Palace, Chu Xiu saw Xiang Long again. Compared to the last time, Xiang Long's face showed obvious signs of aging. Even his aura was weaker. Chu Xiu raised his eyebrows slightly. He could roughly guess why Xiang Long was so persistent. It was not that Xiang Long was old and muddle-headed, but this mighty ruler of Northern Yan did not have much longer to live. This Northern Yan ruler had spent half of his life in the military and used half of his power to develop the Northern Yan. He had used all kinds of tricks and schemes to surpass Eastern Qi. Finally, he had developed the Northern Yan into a country that was comparable to Eastern Qi. However, with the foundation and potential of the Northern Yan, there were too many things for Xiang Long to handle, and it was too much for him to handle. Take the Emperor of Eastern Qi, Lu Haochang, for example. He was a famous mediocre emperor who did not want to think about anything else other than stability. That was why he had the time to cultivate his body and mind, almost causing his son to die of exhaustion. Even if Xiang Long had the false reputation of being a heavenly treasure, he would only be drinking poison to quench his thirst. The effect would not be too great. Before he died, he wanted to leave behind a stable and complete Northern Yan for his descendants. This was perhaps Xiang Long's last wish. At this time, when he saw Chu Xiu coming, Xiang Long snorted and said, "Chu Xiu, you are the governor of my Northern Yan's Jianghu Hall. I have given you such an important position, but you run away all day. What is this?" Chu Xiu said faintly, "Your Majesty, you have wronged me. I am alone outside, but I have not delayed the matters of Jianghu Hall. In the beginning, I made an agreement with your Majesty that Jianghu Hall could help to suppress the Northern Yan martial arts. Now, the Northern Yan martial arts is very stable and peaceful. What difference does it make whether I am there or not?" Xiang Long snorted coldly and said, "I am too lazy to argue with you about these trivial matters. I have told you before that the Northern Yan will station troops in the bitter and cold land of the extreme north. Your Jianghu Hall will be responsible for spearheading the attack. Do you know about this?" Chu Xiu frowned and said, "Your Majesty, you have seen the strength of the great Guangming Temple. Stationing troops in the bitter and cold land of the extreme north is tantamount to provoking the great Guangming Temple. The consequences are hard to imagine." Xiang Long was silent for a while and suddenly said, "Chu Xiu, do you think that I have lost my mind? Do I have to stir up trouble at this critical moment and provoke those monks?" Chu Xiu did not speak, but obviously, this was what he meant. Xiang Long suddenly laughed, and then his face instantly turned gloomy. He said coldly, "I am the Emperor of the Northern Yan. The thousands of miles of the Northern Yan territory are all mine. But the monks of the great Guangming Temple have no regard for me, nor for the Northern Yan. Before you went to Eastern Qi, an old monk of the Dharma Hall of the great Guangming Temple passed by Donglin County. Because Nan Qianli, the general of the Iron Guards of Donglin County, was a rogue cultivator of diabolism and was practicing diabolism with prisoners on death row in the military camp, he sensed his aura and broke into the military camp alone. He killed Nan Qianli and hundreds of Northern Yan soldiers before finally leaving. In the eyes of those monks, they only care about their own right and wrong. When have I ever existed in their eyes? Is it possible that one day, when someone in my palace practices demonic arts, they will also kill their way into my palace?" After listening to Xiang Long's words, Chu Xiu's eyebrows suddenly twitched. At this time, he did not know how to describe the monks of the great Guangming Temple. Is there really something wrong with these bald donkeys? Other places are not enough for you to show off your strength. How dare you break into the Northern Yan military camp alone to kill people? To be honest, if this kind of thing happened to Chu Xiu, he would not be able to tolerate it either. If the monks of the great Guangming Temple had the intention, the imperial court could still negotiate with them to find out what the conflict was between the two sides. But the problem was that the old monk of the great Guangming Temple did it unintentionally. He only felt that someone was practicing diabolism with human lives. Well, it did not matter if the other party was the general of the Northern Yen, and it did not matter if the other party practiced diabolism with prisoners on death row. In any case, he would be killed. From this point, it could be seen that the monks of the Great Guangming Temple had never taken the Northern Yen imperial court seriously. It was no wonder that Xiang Long was so angry. However, Xiang Long's anger was his business. Chu Xiu did not intend to help Xiang Long die. Therefore, Chu Xiu said directly, "Your Majesty, the Jianghu Hall can help you with other matters. But this matter is no different from courting death. The abbot of the Great Guangming Temple has already stepped into the metaphysical realm of heaven and earth. If you anger him, who will stop him?" Xiang Long snorted and said, "If this matter was so simple, why would I look for you? You decide the scale of this matter yourself. I only want the result, not the process." Chu Xiu still wanted to say something, but at this moment, Lu Jianghu suddenly said, "Kid, agree to it. In the past, the Blood Demon Hall buried their treasures in the cold land of the extreme north, not far from the Great Guangming Temple." Chu Xiu said doubtfully, "Are you joking? You are a member of the Kunlun Devil cult, but you placed the treasures in the vicinity of the Great Guangming Temple?" Lu Jianghu laughed coldly and said, "So what? With the power of the sacred cult in the past, as long as the items are not placed in the latrine of the abbot of the Great Guangming Temple, they can be placed anywhere. In the past, when the Patriarch Dugu was still around, the Great Guangming Temple was so scared that they did not even dare to step out of their mountain gates. Only by placing the treasures there will it be safe enough." Lu Jianghu would not lie to him about this matter, so when he heard Lu Jianghu say this, Chu Xiu could only put on an expression as if he had no choice but to submit. He said in a low voice, "As you wish, Your Majesty." If there were no orders from the imperial court, Chu Xiu would probably be suspected by the people of the Great Guangming Temple if he rashly went near the Great Guangming Temple. With the imperial court's orders, Chu Xiu had an additional excuse. Of course, on the surface, he still had to put on an expression of helplessness that he had only agreed to it. After Chu Xiu left, an old eunuch appeared behind Xiang Long. It was Xiang Long's personal eunuch, Eunuch Han. He said in a low voice, "Your Majesty, this official Chu seems to be very unwilling. If you force him like this, will there be any accidents?" Xiang Long snorted coldly, "This gang of Jianghu people are so wild and hard to tame. Unwilling? With me, there is no such thing as willing or unwilling, only what can be done and what cannot be done." At this point, Xiang Long's voice suddenly became softer. He sighed and said, "I don't have much time left. The Northern Yen is inherently weak and cannot compete with the Eastern Qi, which is located in the Central Plains. In this generation, even with my painstaking efforts, coupled with the fact that Eastern Qi's Lu Haochang is basically an incompetent person, we can only temporarily suppress the Eastern Qi. However, the strength of both sides is still there. As long as Eastern Qi produces a slightly passable emperor, the Northern Yen will be in danger. At this time, I can't do anything about the external problems, but as for the internal problems, I want to completely solve them while I am still alive." Eunuch Han shook his head silently. "Your Majesty is too anxious. Although the power of the Northern Yen Jianghu is not as strong as Eastern Qi, it is not that easy to deal with. Especially when His Majesty wants to kill with a borrowed knife. This is actually a risky move. Chu Xiu is not an obedient knife. People from the diabolism are the most dangerous. Previously, when His Majesty promised Taoist Wang of the Shade Mountain faction to become the national religion, Eunuch Han was against it. The people from the Shade Mountain faction are also from the diabolism. They are ruthless and not good people. But now, His Majesty actually lured this Chu Xiu here. This person has been notorious in the Jianghu for a long time and is also not a good person. Of course, Eunuch Han will not say these things because there is no need. He is just a servant, not a member of the Northern Yen royal family. What should be said can be said, and what should not be said, there is no need for him to say it. Moreover, for a hero like Xiang Long, it is certain that he is headstrong and will not listen to the advice of others. At this moment, after Chu Xiu walked out of the palace, his face was gloomy. Does Xiang Long really think of me as his official? He actually dares to force me like this. The Jianghu Hall and the Northern Yan Imperial Court are actually just partners. Lu Jiang he chuckled in Chu Xiu's ear and said, "Don't be surprised, the Imperial Court is like this. In the past, when the Kunlun Devil cult was still around, whether it is Eastern Qi or Northern Yan, they did not dare to interfere in any Jianghu matters. Now, this old Northern Yan emperor has the guts to dare to have designs on the Temple of Great Light." Chu Xiu ignored Lu Jianghe. At this moment, Taoist Wang came out from the other side of the palace. Seeing Chu Xiu, Taoist Wang revealed a smile and said, "It seems that official Chu has been entrusted with an important task by His Majesty. Congratulations." Although Taoist Wang was congratulating him, his expression was one of schadenfreude. Going head-on against the Temple of Great Light is not a good task. Aren't you, Chu Xiu, very capable? Aren't you high profile? Now, this kind of good thing naturally fell on your head, and not on my head. Chu Xiu did not say anything. He just stared at Taoist Wang until he saw Taoist Wang's hair stand on end. Only then did he say, "You think this is a good thing? You are gloating at my misfortune, but you are the one laughing at yourself." Taoist Wang frowned and said, "What do you mean?" Chu Xiu looked around and said, "Let's find a quiet place to talk." Chapter 778. Taoist Wang was inexplicably brought to a restaurant by Chu Xiu. Facing Chu Xiu alone, Taoist Wang was rather nervous. Actually, this time, Taoist Wang had come to mock Chu Xiu. Previously in the Suppression Martial Hall, Taoist Wang had been suppressed by Chu Xiu to the extreme. In name, he was the general director of the Suppression Martial Hall, but in reality he could not interfere with the authority of the Suppression Martial Hall at all. In the Jianghu, whenever the Suppression Martial Hall was mentioned, the first person that came to mind was Chu Xiu, and not Taoist Wang, who had an extremely low presence. Taoist Wang also knew why Xiang Long had sought out Chu Xiu this time, so he was very happy in his heart. "You, Chu Xiu, are high-profile and arrogant. You used to be very awe-inspiring, but look at you now. You've become the bird that sticks out, haven't you? But who would have thought that Chu Xiu would not be angry, and instead bring him here?" Taoist Wang was also a little uneasy. This Chu Xiu could not possibly want to kill him, could he? Previously, there were many eyes in the palace, but now it was quiet here. This was the best time to strike. But just because he had mocked Chu Xiu, he wanted to kill him. This Chu Xiu should not be that crazy, right? But according to Chu Xiu's usual style of doing things, he seemed to be such a crazy person. Taoist Wang's imagination was running wild when Chu Xiu suddenly said, "Taoist Wang, do you think that His Majesty sending me to fight the Temple of Great Light is a very funny thing?" Taoist Wang was startled by Chu Xiu's sudden words. His body trembled violently, and he almost fled. But sensing that Chu Xiu did not have any killing intent, Taoist Wang laughed awkwardly and said, "It's not funny. Official Chu, please do not mind my words just now." Chu Xiu glanced at Taoist Wang curiously, not knowing why he had such a huge reaction. He did not know that his ferocity had reached such a level. Without even saying a word, Taoist Wang's imagination had already made him seem like he was about to kill someone. Chu Xiu said lightly, "Taoist Priest 5 Disasters, I know that you have a problem with me. However, you should know very well where this problem comes from. My promise to Xiang Long to establish the Jianghu Hall was just a deal. Your cooperation with the Northern Yan Imperial Court is also a deal. Xiang Long can set up another department for you and me at the same time when he establishes the Suppression Martial Hall. Not only will there be no conflict, but both of us can cooperate sincerely. We can also maximize our strength, right?" Taoist Wang did not speak. He was not an idiot. He naturally knew about these things. However, knowing was one thing, but it did not mean that he could let it go. He naturally did not dare to resent Xiang Long, so he could only challenge Chu Xiu. Of course, he could only use some small tricks in the dark. He did not have the guts to directly clash with Chu Xiu. Looking at Taoist Wang, Chu Xiu knocked on the table and said word by word, "Taoist Wang, no matter what enmity your Shadow Mountain sect had with the Kunlun Devil cult in the past, You must remember that you and I are people of the pugilistic world, not people of the imperial court. The pugilistic world and the imperial court are always opposing existences. Xiang Long may have used us, but he has never trusted us. Chu Xiu's words caused Taoist Wuiyang's heart to tremble violently. Chu Xiu was speaking the truth. He could also see that Xiang Long had never trusted him. Although he had been by Xiang Long's side longer than Chu Xiu, to Xiang Long, the two were the same. Xiang Long did not trust Chu Xiu, and similarly did not trust Taoist Wuiyang. After a moment of silence, Taoist Wuiyang said, "Official Chu, so what do you mean now?" Chu Xiu knocked on the table and said, "Taoist Wuiyang, without the lips, the teeth will be cold. Today, Xiang Long was able to force me to go against the Temple of Great Light. This is enough to show Xiang Long's attitude towards us people of the pugilistic world. We are nothing more than his lackeys. Once the cunning hare is dead, the lackey will be cooked. Xiang Long still has a use for us now, and he will do this, let alone in the future when he has no use for us. Today, I am the unlucky one. Bringing Taoist Wuiyang with me, do you dare say that you will never have a turn?" Taoist Wuiyang's expression was somewhat uncertain. In truth, when he first heard the news, Taoist Wuiyang's first reaction was indeed to gloat at Chu Xiu's misfortune. But after Chu Xiu explained everything clearly, Taoist Wuiyang was no longer in the mood to gloat over his misfortune. Emperors were fickle, and a mighty ruler like Xiang Long was even colder by nature. Chu Xiu had been the viceroy of the subduing martial hall for a long time, and he had helped Xiang Long settle many things. It could be said that Xiang Long had profited greatly from the deal with Chu Xiu. But now, he still had to fall out with him. After a moment of silence, Taoist Wuiyang asked, "Then official Chu, what do you mean?" Chu Xiu narrowed his eyes and said, "What do I mean? Some things are not good to say too clearly. But I believe that you, Taoist Wuiyang, should be able to see one thing. Xiang Long probably won't be able to live for long. Since Xiang Long wants to see us opposing each other, then you and I will put on a show for Xiang Long. As for the future, we can talk about it later. But I'm afraid that the Northern Yen court will not be peaceful for long. I believe that when the time comes, Taoist Wuiyang, you should know which side you should stand on." After saying this, Chu Xiu patted Taoist Wuiyang's shoulder and turned to leave. In the restaurant, Taoist Wuiyang's expression was somewhat uncertain. He was also a little uncertain about what Chu Xiu was planning. But it was clear that Xiang Long had angered Chu Xiu this time. From his tone, he was preparing for a big one. For Chu Xiu to dare call Xiang Long by his name in front of him, it was obvious that he had no respect for Xiang Long at all. Taoist Wuiyang's Shadow Mountain sect was a branch of Taoism after all. He still had some qi divination skills. He saw Xiang Long a few days ago. At this moment, Xiang Long was indeed haunted by death. Even with those precious treasures, his own aging could not be made up for. When the day of Xiang Long's death came, the Northern Yen court would be in chaos. Which side would he stand on? This was a question that was worth pondering. Of course, for now, Taoist Wuiyang was very much in agreement with what Chu Xiu said. Right now, they were on the same side. They could put on a show on the surface, but they could not really kill each other on the inside. After returning to the Jianghu hall, Mei Qinglian wanted to ask Chu Xiu what Xiang Long had said to him. Chu Xiu waved his hand and said, "Gather everyone. Let's go to the meeting hall to discuss." After a quarter of an hour, all of Chu Xiu's trusted elites had gathered in the Jianghu hall. Mei Qinglian and Pang Hu were there. Tanya and the other old men under Chu Xiu, as well as Zhao Chengping and the others from the Yinma clan were also there. Moreover, Lu Fengxian had also brought Shui Wuxiang and the other three here. Originally, Mei Qinglian did not call Lu Fengxian. However, Lu Fengxian was in the Jianghu hall. He thought that something had happened, so he followed to see if he could help. Everyone knew the relationship between Lu Fengxian and Chu Xiu, so they did not say much. Looking at the crowd, Chu Xiu said in a deep voice, "Just now, Xiang Long asked me to go over and force the Jianghu hall to take action to deal with the Great Light Temple. He wanted to test their bottom line." Mei Qinglian frowned and said, "What is Xiang Long thinking? Provoking the Great Light Temple at this time? Is he courting death?" Chu Xiu sneered and said, Of course, Xiang Long knows that this is courting death. Therefore, he did not send the Northern Yan's national 5 armies, but sent the Jianghu Hall. It's just to drive the tiger to swallow the wolf. The national 5 armies are Northern Yan's own people, while we are outsiders. Most importantly, we belong to the Yinma clan. Once something happens to me, will the Yinma clan let it go? At that time, the Northern Yan Imperial Court does not need to do anything. The Yinma clan itself will fight with the Great Light Temple. Even if both sides are not destroyed, their vitality will be greatly damaged. Anyway, no matter how you look at it, the Northern Yan Imperial Court will benefit. Pang Hu rubbed his head and sneered. Like I said, that old thing Xiang Long is not a person who is easy to get along with. Cooperating with him is like asking a tiger for its skin. Chu Xiu, why don't you just bring the Jianghu Hall and rebel against the Northern Yan? The Qilian Stockade will still follow you. In this Northern Yan land, the power that we can create together will not lose to the 36 northern bandits of the past. Chu Xiu shook his head and said, rebel against the Northern Yan Imperial Court? During this period of time, I have led the Jianghu Hall to help the Northern Yan Imperial Court suppress so many sects in the pugilistic world. These are all achievements and foundations. If I leave now, won't there be nothing left? Even if I want to leave, I can't just leave like this. Otherwise, won't we suffer a great loss? Mei Qinglian frowned and said, what can we do if we don't leave? Are you really going to go against the Great Light Temple? Chu Xiu said, we'll talk about the Great Light Temple in the future. For now, all of you should be careful and try to maintain your strength. Don't get into conflict with the Imperial Court. The same goes for Taoist Wuyong's people. Also, I would like to meet with Senior Wei to discuss some matters. Mei Qinglian asked, what is it? Chu Xiu squinted and said, I want to ask old Senior Wei if he has any plans to let the Yinma clan settle down in the Northern Yan. After drifting for so long, the Yinma clan should have a stable base. They don't have to hide underground. Hearing Chu Xiu say this, Mei Qinglian was shocked. What was Chu Xiu planning to do? Was he going to rebel? The Yinma clan had a special identity. Even if the Yinma clan surrendered to him, Xiang Long would not dare to accept them. Otherwise, wouldn't the Northern Yan become a den of demons? As for Chu Xiu, he was a special case. Chu Xiu had always appeared in front of the pugilistic world. It was not until recently that he revealed his identity as a member of the Yinma clan. Moreover, he had fought against the attacks of the Northern Yan and Eastern Qi alliances. He had the right to appear in the pugilistic world openly. Therefore, it was not a problem for Xiang Long to cooperate with Chu Xiu. Although Mei Qinglian knew that Chu Xiu had always been bold, this time, he had actually set his sights on the Northern Yan Imperial Court. This could not be called bold, it was simply crazy. Chapter 779. To be honest, Chu Xiu did not intend to fall out with Xiang Long so soon. He had a good life in the Northern Yan. As for the Imperial Court, he only needed to complete the task given by Xiang Long. On the Jianghu side, except for the big sects like the Great Guangming Temple, the other forces in the Northern Yan Wulin were not as strong as the Eastern Qi Wulin, so Chu Xiu could deal with them easily. Therefore, if there were no accidents, Chu Xiu really wanted to manage the name of the Jianghu Hall well and develop its strength quietly. Even Chu Xiu let the people in the Jianghu Hall perform their own duties and develop various departments. Although it was still a little immature, it was complete. Some specialized in intelligence, although the source and speed of information were not as fast as the wind media of the wind-sweeping building. There were also those who forged weapons, though it took a lot of effort to forge even a single precious weapon. Some refined elixirs, although they could only refine the blood recovery elixir. Although the effect was not satisfactory, at least it was very comprehensive. Under Chu Xiu's command, there was already a complete embryonic force, not only with force. As a result, who would have thought that Xiang Long would play such a trick on him? The rabbit was not dead yet, but he began to plot. This time, because Chu Xiu originally wanted to go to the extreme north to dig the treasure left by Lu Jianghe, he had to agree. But next time, maybe Xiang Long would do something, so Chu Xiu had to prepare early. Because Chu Xiu could not leave the northern Yen for the time being, after Mei Qinglian informed Wei Shuya came in person. In the secret room of the Jianghu Hall, Chu Xiu bowed to Wei Shuya and said, "Elder Wei, I'm really sorry to trouble you to come here at this time." After the war between the righteous and the devil, Wei Shuya, a true fire expert in the spiritual refinement realm who participated in the war, was almost always in seclusion. It could be considered as recuperating and digesting the gains of the war. This time, when Chu Xiu asked for it, Wei Shuya came in person. It could be said that he had given Chu Xiu enough face. Wei Shuya hammered his thigh and said, "It's fine. I was born to be a laborer. I should move while I can. Otherwise, after a few years, I won't be able to move even if I want to. I heard from Mei last that you were tricked by that brat Xiang Long, and now you want to scheme against the northern Yen?" Chu Xiu shook his head and said, "It's not about the northern Yen. It's just that Xiang Long is too cold-blooded. He wants to burn the bridge before crossing it. Since he's heartless, I naturally don't need to talk about morality. Northern Yan's Xiang Long was indeed worthy of his title as a hero. With him around, even if I wanted to cause trouble in Northern Yen, I wouldn't have the ability to do so. But now, as far as I know, Xiang Long doesn't have much time left. My lurking devil clan might have a chance to take over Northern Yen." Wei Shuya frowned and thought for a moment. If Xiang Long dies, the Northern Yen will fall into chaos for a while. But the Northern Yan's royal family isn't weak either. Moreover, although the princes of the Northern Yen aren't as strong as Xiang Long, they aren't too weak either. The chaos will only last for a while. Eventually, peace will return. So, there aren't many opportunities for us to intervene. Chu Xiu said lightly, "Under normal circumstances, that would be the case. But if we intervene, the Northern Yen won't just be in chaos for a while." Wei Shuya was stunned for a moment, then laughed. "I almost forgot. You're still the one who's cunning. You should be the best at this kind of thing." Wei Shuya's comment on Chu Xiu's cunning wasn't meant to scold him. In the demonic path, it was a compliment. Otherwise, he wouldn't have praised Chu Xiu for being cunning, but for being kind. Wei Shuya waved his hand. "I'll leave the thinking to you youngsters. This old man is old and my brain can't keep up. I won't meddle in this. As long as you're confident, it's fine. Whatever you want to do, just tell me." Chu Xiu said, "Xiang Long isn't dead yet, but we need to make preparations on our side. I only have one request for you to come here, and that is for you to use your connections to secretly gather the people on your side or those who are on good terms with you to the Northern Yen Kingdom. Let me think of a way to secretly insert them into the Northern Yen Kingdom's imperial court. These people don't need to do anything for the time being. They just need to lay low and wait for my news to spread. Then they can move at the same time." Mei Qinglian, who was at the side, felt a chill run down her spine. She didn't know what Chu Xiu's plan was, but it was obvious that Chu Xiu didn't have good intentions by inserting so many people into the Northern Yen court. Once it was launched, the power would be beyond imagination. Moreover, this was a decision that Wei Shuya had to ponder over. Chu Xiu was playing such a big game. The Northern Yen royal family and the Northern Yen court weren't weak either. If something went wrong, it would be a serious blow to the Inma clan. To be more precise, it would be a blow to Wei Shuya's people. In fact, for so many years, Wei Shuya didn't establish his own sect or accept many disciples like the other Inma clan leaders. However, he had a lot of people under his command. These people weren't Wei Shuya's subordinates, nor were they his disciples. But they all treated him with great respect. Some of them admired Wei Shuya. After all, he was one of the 5 great sky demons of the 9th Sky Mountain. He was the last backbone of the Inma clan. Wei Shuya's identity alone was worthy of their respect. There were also warriors of the hidden devil clan like Chu Wuji, who had received favors from Wei Shuya. They were also willing to follow Wei Shuya and be at his beck and call. As long as Wei Shuya asked, these people wouldn't refuse. However, it was precisely because of this that Wei Shuya had to be extremely cautious when it came to such a big matter. Otherwise, he would lose the lives of so many warriors of his lineage. Especially since these people trusted him so much, Wei Shuya would feel a heartache. After a while, Wei Shuya asked in a low voice. How confident are you? Chu Xiu shook his head and said, I can't say for sure. No one can say for sure that they will succeed. 30% depends on oneself and 70% depends on the heavens. I can only do my best and leave the rest to the heavens. But once it's done, the Yinma clan will have a firm foothold in the northern Yen and become our foundation. Wei Shuya let out a long sigh and said, Okay, no problem. I'll go back and arrange it. But Chu Xiu, you have to be very careful about this. They trusted I, and now I trust you too. I hope you won't let me down. Chu Xiu bowed slightly and said, Don't worry, Elder Wei. When have I ever done anything unprepared? With that, Wei Shuya turned around and left, leaving only Mei Qinglian and Chu Xiu in the secret room. Looking at Chu Xiu, Mei Qinglian had a strange look on her face. She said, Are you really going to do something big this time? Chu Xiu shook his head and said, It's not that I'm prepared. It's just that the arrow on the bow has to be released. If I wasn't prepared, I would have been tricked to death by that old fart, Xiang Long, without even knowing how I died. Mei Qinglian waved her hand and said, Forget it. I won't say much. It's good that you're prepared. Just like what Old Wei said, you're the best at scheming. Chu Xiu said with a serious expression, I'm actually good at persuading people with reason, but there are a lot of people who are unreasonable now, so I can only take out my knife and explain things to them. Then why didn't you take out your knife when you were facing Xiang Long? Mei Qinglian's expression was as if she'd believe him. If I dare to draw my knife against Xiang Long now, I probably won't even be able to walk out of the palace alive. It's precisely because it's useless to just pull out a knife when facing some people, so it's reasonable to use some small tricks at this time. Mei Qinglian snorted and said, I can't be bothered to listen to your nonsense. Old Wei has already arranged people. How are you going to stuff people into the northern Yen court? Chu Xiu said in a deep voice, I don't have the slightest foundation in the northern Yen court. Other than stuffing people into the Jianghu hall, I can't do anything else. So I need someone else to handle this matter. Xiang Wu and a prince. Chu Xiu didn't even think before he spoke. It was obvious that he had already come up with a countermeasure. Mei Qinglian frowned and said, Xiang Wu? The guy who likes to eat bananas? I remember he's also from the northern Yen royal family. Is he reliable? And which prince are you talking about? How can you be so sure that those princes will listen to you? Chu Xiu said in a deep voice, If Xiang Wu isn't reliable, he wouldn't be able to become the great general of the West Hill Army. As for which prince it is, I still need to test them one by one. But I believe that almost all the princes want to sit on the dragon throne. And among these princes, there are many who have resentment towards Xiang Long. Anyway, I'll test them one by one and find a suitable candidate. After explaining to Mei Qinglian, Chu Xiu prepared to go to Xiang Wu first. Xiang Wu and Chu Xiu had a deep cooperation. In the beginning, Xiang Wu helped Chu Xiu to stop the Huangfu old ancestor. After that, Chu Xiu also cooperated with Xiang Wu. He helped Xiang Wu obtain the trade route of the giant spirit gang and helped him support the soldiers under him. Most people would feel that Xiang Wu wasn't very reliable after seeing him, just like Mei Qinglian. But in fact, Xiang Wu was a person who could see things more clearly than anyone else. He was also very steady in doing things. An unreliable general without the slightest ambition would not always think about fighting for the interests of his soldiers. When Chu Xiu went to see Xiang Wu, he specially bought a basket of bananas as a gift. He knew that Xiang Wu liked bananas. But it was quite difficult to buy in northern Yen. Chu Xiu had people search half of Yanjing before finding it. When he arrived at Xiang Wu's mansion, Chu Xiu found nothing. The servants said that Xiang Wu was in the barracks outside the city. When Chu Xiu turned around and came to the barracks, Xiang Wu seemed to have already heard the news. He was waiting at the gate in advance. When he saw Chu Xiu coming over with bananas, he directly took it and scolded, Why did you bring anything? Official Chu, you are really treating me like an outsider. Chapter 780. General Xiang welcomed Chu Xiu into the barracks. With an arrogant expression, he pointed at the soldiers who were training in the barracks and said, Lord Chu, my West Hill army has the shortest history among the 5 armies of the Northern Yen Kingdom. It has developed to this state in just a dozen years. What do you think? Strong troops and strong horses. Chu Xiu only said these 4 words, but Jianghu was already overjoyed. To him, these 4 words were the best compliment he could receive. Moreover, Chu Xiu was not praising Jianghu ideologically, but the West Hill army under Jianghu was really not weak. Although the people of Jianghu and the warriors of the military both practiced martial arts, their paths were completely different, especially in the early stage. Most of the martial arts practiced by the people of Jianghu in the early stage were used for one-on-one combat, so their development was more comprehensive. They did not need to be proficient in close combat, weapons and concealed weapons as well as speed, but at least they needed to know a little. But the warriors of the military were different. The military did not have the time to wait for a martial artist to fully develop, so the martial artists who came from the military only cultivated 2 things. One was to train their muscles and bones, temper their bodies, and the other was to cultivate those single but extremely powerful killing skills. There were tens of thousands of people fighting on the battlefield, so it was useless to learn those messy martial arts skills. As long as they had a killing skill, it was enough. At the moment, the warriors of the West Hill army under Xiang Long were gathered together. Their qi and blood were surging, and their killing intent was soaring. It could be said that they were all elites. After bringing Chu Xiu into the tent, there was also a fair-faced, middle-aged warrior who looked like a Confucian scholar. Chu Xiu said softly, "I have something secret to discuss with you, Marty." Xiang Wu waved his hand and said, "Official Chu, just say it. This is Yin Luohua, my trusted subordinate. No matter how big the secret is, there is no need to hide it from him." Come to think of it, old Yin and official Chu know each other. When official Chu first made a name for yourself in East Yen, old Yin was stationed there as a general. Yin Luohua smilingly cupped his hands towards Chu Xiu and said, "I've known official Chu for a long time. Back then, I already felt that official Chu was extraordinary. Now, it seems that I really have a good eye for people. Lord Yin is too polite." Chu Xiu gently raised his eyebrows and cupped his hands towards Yin Luohua. What he wanted to say was too sensitive, and he didn't want others to hear it. However, since Jianghu has made Yin Luohua stay here, I, Chu Xiu, cannot drive her away. Therefore, Chu Xiu directly said to Jianghu, "Marquis, what I want to tell you today is somewhat treasonous. Once the 2 of you hear it, you will not be able to speak of it. Of course, even if the 2 of you leak the news, I will not admit it." Hearing Chu Xiu say it so formally and seriously, Xianghu and Yin Luohua's expressions changed slightly. Treasonous? What was Chu Xiu trying to do? Looking at the 2 of them, Chu Xiu said in a deep voice, "Not long ago, His Majesty forced the subduing Marshal Hall to be the vanguard to station troops in the extreme north. You should know the consequences of such an action. This is basically a provocation to the Great Light Temple." Xianghu and Yin Luohua looked at each other. They were not idiots and naturally could hear that something was wrong. Xianghu rubbed his chin and said, "Official Chu, have you offended His Majesty? Don't worry, when there's a chance, I will help you plead for leniency for His Majesty." Chu Xiu shook his head and said, "Of course not. Marquis, have you not seen His Majesty for a long time?" Xianghu frowned and said, "Yes, it's been a few months. What's wrong? Did something happen to His Majesty?" In fact, in terms of status, Xianghu should be the most trustworthy person for Xianglong. After all, he was born into the Northern Yen royal family. Of course, this was the reality. Xianglong loved to order Xianghu to do things big and small. But in fact, Xianghu also knew that this trust came with a price. That price was that his connections in the Northern Yen court were not very high. In the eyes of the other Northern Yen military experts, they were the same kind of people. And Xianghu, who was born into the Northern Yen royal family, was another kind of person. He definitely represented the interests of the Northern Yen royal family. But in fact, only Xianghu himself knew that he was actually being ostracized by the Northern Yen royal family. Although he was considered a member of the Northern Yen royal family, he was born into a collateral branch. His bloodline with the Northern Yen royal family had thinned to a certain extent, and the two sides actually had no feelings for each other. That was why Xianglong had summoned him back and entrusted him with a heavy responsibility. What he valued was only his public identity and ability. To put it bluntly, Xianglong wanted to use Jianghu to divide the power of the Northern Yen military. He did not want them to be as united as a piece of iron. His purpose was the same as Taoist Wuyang and Chu Xiu. Xianghu was considered by the military to be a member of the Northern Yen royal family, but at the same time, the Northern Yen royal family did not see him as one of their own. Therefore, Xianghu could only rely on Xianglong. Although Xianghu was unreliable most of the time, he was very clear about these things. If it were anyone else, they might have tried to curry favor with Xianglong to solidify their position. But with Xianghu's personality, he was not one for flattery. Xianghu knew his position. As long as his strength remained at its peak, then Xianglong would always put him in an important position, even more so than others. On the other hand, if he did not have the strength, then no matter how hard he tried to curry favor with Xianglong, it would be useless. All in all, his relationship with Xianglong could be considered a deal. Since it was a deal, then it should be more straightforward. There was no need for all those messy things, and he naturally would not stay by Xianglong's side. I'm afraid His Majesty will not last much longer this time. The last time I saw His Majesty, he was already surrounded by a deathly aura. That is why His Majesty is in such a hurry to have me deal with the great Guangming Temple. I think he is preparing to deal with any uncertain factors within the Northern Yen first, so that the next generation can have a stable Northern Yen. Hearing Chu Xiu's words, Xianghu felt somewhat conflicted. Since Xianglong was already showing signs of his lifespan reaching its end, he only needed to make a trip to the palace to immediately find out the truth. Therefore, he did not suspect that Chu Xiu would lie to him. He did not have any feelings for Xianglong. The two of them were just a deal. However, it would not be so easy to find someone like Xianglong who understood him so well, and who worked together with him so well. So, what are you trying to say? Xianghu stared at Chu Xiu. Chu Xiu knocked on the table and said, "What I want to say is very simple. A new emperor brings his own ministers. Marquis, you should think about the future. His Majesty is a great ruler. When he is around, Northern Yen will not fall into chaos. When he is gone, Northern Yen will undoubtedly fall into chaos. Therefore, at this time, your standpoint is very important. But Marquis, your standpoint now is on His Majesty's side. When His Majesty leaves, where are you going to stand? It seems that Marquis, you have no relationship with any of the princes. His Majesty will not allow you to contact any of the princes now." The smile on Xianghu's face gradually disappeared. In Luohua also looked at Chu Xiu with a strange gaze. This person really dared to talk about when the Northern Yen Emperor Xianglong would die in Yanjing City. This question was really a sensitive one. In fact, In Luohua had also mentioned this to Xianghu, asking him to manage his own power and not just limit it to the West Hill Army. When His Majesty was still around, Xianghu could do whatever he wanted. But once Xianglong was gone, the new emperor might not tolerate Xianghu, nor might he understand the value of Xianghu's existence. At this time, only strength and power could really protect oneself. Xianghu narrowed his eyes and said, "Then what do you mean? Are you saying that you want me to stand on your side?" Chu Xiu shook his head and said, "Marquis, please don't joke. Even if I change my surname to Xiang, I can't become the Northern Yen Emperor. I just want to temporarily ally with you, Marquis, just in case. The Jianghu Hall's power is in the open, but there is still a part of the Yinma clan's power hidden in the dark. So I want Marquis to help me put these people into the Northern Yen court. Any position is fine, just not particularly important." Hearing Chu Xiu's words, Xianghu's face suddenly darkened. He said coldly, "You want to rebel?" Chu Xiu's expression did not change. He said, "I can't start a Northern Yen rebellion. There is the Northern Yen royal family holding the fort, and there are so many experts in the court and military. If I want to overthrow the Northern Yen, do you think these people are enough? As I said, this is just in case. Marquis, don't forget, no matter when, one's own strength is fundamental. With that, Chu Xiu stood up and said, Marquis, after I say these things today, I will not admit it again. I will give you some time to consider. Once you have made up your mind, just send someone to the Jianghu Hall to inform me. With that, Chu Xiu left, leaving behind Jianghu and Yin Luohua, who were deep in thought. When Chu Xiu walked out of the military camp, Lu Jiang he suddenly said, Boy, do you think that guy will agree to your conditions? Don't forget, that guy's surname is also Xiang. Why did the big sects and families of the past spend so much effort to hunt down the holy sect and the sects that are related to us? They are afraid that we are connected to each other and will do something. Chu Xiu narrowed his eyes and said, Yes, his surname is Xiang, but it is not the Xiang of Xianglong. Although he is said to be from the remote royal family, Xiangwu does not have much sense of belonging to the northern Yan. We have a choice, but Xiangwu has no choice. If he chooses to turn a blind eye and continue living like this, then when something happens to Xianglong, he will be the one in the most passive position. If he chooses to get close to the princes at this time, then it is also impossible. Be it Yin Luohua or Xiangwu, they are not idiots and will not do such a thing. Xianglong is not dead yet, and he can't wait to find his next target. This is a big taboo. So, cooperating with me is Xiangwu's best choice. Chapter 781. Xiangwu's choice was important to Chu Xiu, but it was also not important. Xianglong was not dead yet, so Chu Xiu still had time to arrange a lot of things. Even if Xiangwu did not choose to join forces with him in the end, he would certainly not continue to be a loyal subject to Xianglong. It should be said that from the beginning, Xiangwu was not a foolishly loyal person. Otherwise, he would not have come to Chu Xiu to ask for the giant spirit gang's business route. After leaving Xiangwu's place, Chu Xiu was also ready to test the attitude of the northern Yan princes. However, Chu Xiu was not familiar with them, so it was a little sensitive to meet them rashly. Everyone knew that Chu Xiu and Xiangwu had a good relationship. Both sides had always been in contact, so it was not a big deal even if Xianglong knew that Chu Xiu was going to meet Xiangwu at this time. However, if Chu Xiu rashly went to meet the other princes, it would be a little sensitive. Therefore, Chu Xiu still needed to borrow Lu Fengxian. He brought Lu Fengxian with the excuse of finding them to find an identity for Lu Fengxian in the northern Yan court. This excuse was very good. After all, everyone knew that Lu Fengxian was Chu Xiu's good friend. Chu Xiu was not willing to let Lu Fengxian join the Jianghu Hall as a subordinate and find an official position for him. This was also very normal. After hearing Chu Xiu's plan, Lu Fengxian agreed without thinking. However, on the way, Lu Fengxian said to Chu Xiu, Brother Chu, now I know that it is really not easy for you to accumulate such a strong family business and to win the position you have now. You have to scheme everywhere. However, Brother Chu, don't you feel that it is very tiring to do this? You only have one life. Why do you force yourself like this? Lu Fengxian and Chu Xiu had known each other for a long time. At that time, both of them could only be said to be nobodies. And now, the one who was known by the people of the Jianghu was the young Marquis Wen, who was infatuated and had no regrets. He was one of the most dazzling heroes of the younger generation. The other one was Chu Xiu, who was comparable to the older generation of martial artists. He was ferocious and powerful, and he already had a faint demonic aura. It could be said that Lu Fengxian had personally witnessed Chu Xiu walk step by step to the current realm. Along the way, Chu Xiu had almost wandered between life and death several times. Therefore, she was very puzzled as to why Chu Xiu still had to scheme in such a way, even to the extent of physical and mental exhaustion. Chu Xiu shook his head and said, It's not that I'm forcing myself, but the world is forcing us to move forward. In the chaotic world of Jianghu, if you don't kill people, people will kill you. If you're a step slower, people will surpass you by 2 steps. Everyone wants to be free and unfettered, but unless you hide in a desolate place and go into seclusion, where there are people, there will be Jianghu. How can you be free and unfettered? And in my opinion, going into seclusion in such a place isn't really free and unfettered. It's just escaping and putting yourself in a cage. There's no meaning to it. Brother Liu, it's been so many years, do you still not understand? There are no good people in this Jianghu. Even if it's a few famous chivalrous grandmasters, their unintentional actions can cause even greater disasters. Once a hero draws his sword, it's another 10 years of calamity for the common people. In this Jianghu, it's impossible to truly stay out of it. Just like Brother Liu this time, why did the Yu Palace and Yan Fian dare to scheme against you and not me or Ing Bailu? Because they didn't dare. If they dared to scheme against Ing Bailu, the Shangshui Ing clan would dare to make the Yu Palace disappear from the Jianghu the next day. If the Yu Palace dared to scheme against me, I will let them know what is more terrifying than death. On the other hand, the price they have to pay for scheming against Brother Liu is much smaller. So sometimes, it's not that I want to fight, but the way of the world, you and I have no choice but to fight. Lu Fengxian looked at Chu Xiu and was at a loss for words. Originally, he wanted to persuade Chu Xiu, but in the end, he was persuaded by Chu Xiu. But there was nothing he could do. In terms of eloquence, he wasn't as nimble as Chu Xiu. Moreover, the matter with the Yu Palace was indeed handled foolishly. This would probably become a black mark of his life, and people would use it to criticize him whenever they met. Knowing that he couldn't persuade Chu Xiu, Lu Fengxian didn't try to persuade him anymore. As a good friend, most of the time, it didn't matter what you said, but what you did. This time, Chu Xiu took the initiative to come to the sword welcoming conference to save him. In the future, even if Chu Xiu really wanted to rebel, Lu Fengxian would still dare to stand up to the Northern Yan Imperial Court. The first person Chu Xiu brought Lu Fengxian to look for was the 13th prince of the Northern Yan, Xiangchong. This prince had a good relationship with Chu Xiu, and the two of them had a lot of cooperation. Moreover, investing in Xiangchong was a good choice. In the original plot, in the struggle for the throne of the Northern Yan, Xiangchong was the final winner. Although Chu Xiu didn't know how Xiangchong did it, he believed that with Chu Xiu's help, Xiangchong would be able to do the same, or even better. However, when Chu Xiu saw Xiangchong, he realized that he seemed to have thought wrong about one thing. Xiangchong was still very polite to Chu Xiu. After welcoming Chu Xiu into the house, Xiangchong asked with a smile, "Official Chu has just been entrusted with an important task by father. Why do you have the time to come here?" Chu Xiu raised his eyebrows and said, "Your Highness knows about the latest mission of Jianghu Hall?" Xiangchong nodded and said, "Of course I know. I just came back from Father's place 2 days ago, and Father told me about it. Official Chu's Jianghu Hall is getting stronger and stronger. It's time to expand. If we can settle the Great Light Temple, then Jianghu Hall will definitely become an existence comparable to the 5 armies of the country. At that time, I have to congratulate Official Chu. Your Highness has never thought that with the current strength of Jianghu Hall, it will not end well to provoke the Great Light Temple." Chu Xiu said indifferently. Xiangchong smiled awkwardly and said, "Official Chu, you have a sense of propriety. When Jianghu Hall was poor in the past, Official Chu, you could open up the situation. I believe that Official Chu, you will be able to solve this matter perfectly. By the way, Official Chu, why are you here this time?" Chu Xiu said faintly, "Nothing. I just want to trouble your Highness with something. I just want to seek a position for Brother Liu in the Northern Yan Court." Xiangchong said in surprise, "Official Chu doesn't want to leave a position for Brother Liu in Jianghu Hall?" Chu Xiu shook his head and said, "Brother Liu is my good friend, not my subordinate, so it is not appropriate to give a position in Jianghu Hall to Brother Liu." Xiangchong nodded directly and said, "Official Chu, don't worry. Leave this matter to me. Brother Liu used to be on the Longhu list, and now he is a martial arts master. Father will be very happy if he can join the Northern Yan Court. When I see Father next time, I will mention this matter to him. I will definitely give Brother Liu a position that he will be satisfied with." Chu Xiu cupped his hands and said, "Thank you, Your Highness." After that, Chu Xiu refused Xiangchong's invitation to stay and left with Lu Fengxian. After leaving Xiangchong's residence, Lu Fengxian said in surprise, "Why didn't you tell Xiangchong about those things just now?" Chu Xiu squinted his eyes and said, "I was careless. I didn't expect that Xiangchong's feelings for Xianglong are very unusual. He really admires his father. Among the many princes of the northern Yan, Xiang Long doted on Xiang Chong the most, who looked very similar to him when he was young. Therefore, Xiang Chong also had a special father-son relationship with Xiang Long. Xiang Chong was a smart man. He should know the meaning behind Xiang Long's actions, but he still believed that Xiang Long did not do anything wrong. He even talked like an official with Chu Xiu. One could imagine what Chu Xiu would do if he told Xiang Chong the plan. The first thing he would do would probably be to report him to Xiang Long. In the original plot, it was unknown whether Xiang Chong was able to obtain the throne because he was obedient. Then what should we do now? Lu Fengxian asked. Chu Xiu squinted his eyes and said, if Xiang Chong can't do it, then we'll get someone else. That person is probably very unhappy with Xiang Long. But this time, I will go alone. Brother Liu, you can go into seclusion for a period of time to stabilize your realm. After nightfall, the second prince Xiang Li returned to his residence, reeking of alcohol. Unlike Xiang Chong, Xiang Li's ambition was written all over his face. All these years, he had been constantly trying to win over the important officials of the northern Yan court. Whether it was to express goodwill or lure them with benefits, he used all sorts of methods. Coupled with the fact that Xiang Long did not stop him, he had really built up a network of contacts. If he could ascend to the throne in the future, these people would be of great help. But now, the only thing that Xiang Li was unhappy about was his father's attitude. Among so many princes, in terms of ability, who could compare to him? After the crown prince was deposed, he, the second prince, was the real crown prince. But after so many years, he still did not get the title of crown prince. He was still the second prince. On the contrary, his younger brother had no ability at all. Just because he looked like the young Xiang Long, he was very favored. This made Xiang Li very unhappy. He had worked so hard, but in the end he could not compare to a face. As he thought of this angrily, he subconsciously pushed open the door and suddenly saw a black figure sitting in the room. He was instantly shocked, and the smell of alcohol instantly sobered up. Just as he was about to shout, he felt an extremely powerful aura shrouding his body, causing him to swallow his words. Second prince, I mean no harm. I just want to discuss something with you, Chu Xiu said calmly. Chu Xiu, why are you here? Xiang Li closed the door, his face full of surprise. At the same time, he cursed the consecrator of the prince's residence. For princes like Xiang Li, of course, with his high status and strength, there would be a grandmaster consecrator of the northern Yan royal family consecrator in the prince's residence to prevent any accidents. In the end, Chu Xiu had already snuck into his house, but that grandmaster consecrator was still sleeping soundly. Who was it? Chu Xiu was too strong, or that consecrator was too useless? Looking at Xiang Li, Chu Xiu said word by word, I am here to help second prince fight for the throne. Chapter 782. Xiang Li looked at Chu Xiu in bewilderment. What did Chu Xiu just say? Help him fight for the throne? But isn't he 13th prince's man? Xiang Li couldn't help but sneer. Isn't my 13th brother a little too naive? He actually sent you to play such tricks. Do you think I'll believe him? Xiang Li couldn't be blamed for his suspicions. After all, he had a grudge with Chu Xiu. In the past, Xiang Li had tried to win over the Morgue Manor, but before he could succeed, the manor was completely destroyed by Chu Xiu. Later on, Chu Xiu befriended Xiang Chong, and it was all thanks to Xiang Chong that Chu Xiu could become the governor of the Northern Yan's Martial Suppression Hall. Therefore, Xiang Li subconsciously thought that Chu Xiu was sent by his brother to sow discord. Chu Xiu shook his head. It doesn't matter whether you believe me or not. What's important is that second prince, you need to grasp every bit of power you can. Otherwise, the throne will not be yours in the future. Xiang Li sneered, what a joke. If you say it's not mine, then it's not mine? I am the Northern Yan's second prince. In terms of succession, my 13th brother is still far behind. Chu Xiu said indifferently, but you still haven't been appointed as the crown prince. Anger flashed across Xiang Li's face. This was the biggest sore spot in his heart. I've been in power for more than 10 years compared to my 13th brother. Whether it's in the court or in the pugilistic world, my power is stronger than his. Chu Xiu still said indifferently, but you still haven't been appointed as the crown prince. Xiang Li shouted, I've been assisting Imperial Father in handling some royal affairs. What does Xiang Chong know? He only knows how to fool around with some ignorant pugilistic people. How insolent! Chu Xiu still said indifferently, but you still haven't been appointed as the crown prince. Xiang Li was about to go crazy. Can't you say something else? Chu Xiu shook his head and said, No, because this sentence is the key. You are stronger than your 13th brother in every aspect, and you even have the advantage in terms of age and status, but you still haven't been made the crown prince. In fact, when you were fighting with Xiang Chong, Xiang Long even helped him. Don't you know what this means? In the eyes of others, your advantages are your advantages, but in Xiang Long's eyes, your so-called advantages are not even worth a fart. No matter how great your advantage is, it cannot be greater than Xiang Chong's face. That face is almost exactly the same as Xiang Long's when he was young. Passing down the throne to Xiang Chong was a wonderful thing, especially for a great ruler like Xiang Long. Him passing the throne to Xiang Chong represented a new life for him. So, Your Highness, the things you've prepared now are far from enough. You've done everything you can, but it's very likely that in the end, it won't be as effective as Xiang Long's last words. Chu Xiu's words pierced straight into Xiang Li's heart. He also knew about these things, but he had never spoken about them in front of outsiders. Why did he put in so much effort to suppress Xiang Chong? It was all because of Xiang Long's unfairness. He had done so much and prepared so much, but in the end, the ownership of the throne was still unclear. This made Xiang Li feel as if he had wasted all these years. Everything he had done was of no use at all. After a moment of silence, Xiang Li said, You have a good relationship with my 13th brother. Why are you helping me now? According to what you said, if you help my 13th brother, won't your chances of seizing the throne be higher than mine? Chu Xiu said lightly, It's very simple. I've fallen out with His Majesty. You should know about the incident at the Great Light Temple. His Majesty is indeed a great ruler of his generation. He's quite skilled at using such tactics. Xiang Li had also heard about this incident. At that time, he had even secretly mocked Chu Xiu. However, Xiang Li still asked doubtfully, What does falling out with father have to do with whether you help my 13th brother or not? Hearing Xiang Li's question, Chu Xiu also shook his head slightly. This second prince's brain was not very bright. There were some things that he still did not understand. It was no wonder that Xiang Long did not give him the position of crown prince. If Xiang Li's ability was so outstanding that he could beat all the princes, then no matter how much Xiang Chong looked like Xiang Long, he would not be a threat to the second prince's position. Chu Xiu said calmly, My relationship with Xiang Chong is not bad, but I'm still an outsider. At a time like this, Xiang Chong doesn't even dare to speak up for me. What else can I count on him? Xiang Li thought about it and suddenly laughed coldly. Chu Xiu, don't forget that my surname is also Xiang. Here, you are also an outsider. Chu Xiu raised his eyebrows and said, That's very good. When Xiang Chong ascends the throne, see if he will remember that your surname is also Xiang. We were born from the same root, so why rush to destroy each other? In the struggle for the throne in the past, brothers killed each other. I don't need to say that kind of cruel methods. Your Highness, you should also know that. Xiang Li was silent for a while and suddenly said, How can you help me? Chu Xiu stood up and said in a deep voice, How can I help you? The entire Yinma clan supports second prince to ascend the throne. Is this enough? Xiang Li trembled violently. The Yinma clan was a colossus with unfathomable depths. But Xiang Li was not an idiot. He said in a low voice, If I agree, then I will be inviting a wolf into the house. Chu Xiu said lightly, If you don't agree, then you don't even have the qualifications to invite a wolf into the house. You will be directly driven out of the house. Second prince is of noble character and unquestionable integrity. You value the interests of the Northern Yen more than your own future. I will not say anything more. At worst, if I cannot survive in the Northern Yen, I will bring the people of Jianghu Hall back to the Guangzhong torture room. Anyway, the Yinma clan is used to wandering. It is not a big deal to move to another place. Just as Chu Xiu was about to leave, Xiang Li suddenly said, I agree. Xiang Li's eyes were a little bloodshot and looked a little scary. He knew that Chu Xiu was rushing to cooperate with him with no good intentions. He also knew that he was inviting a wolf into the house. However, he had been longing for the throne for more than 10 years. In the end, he found that his efforts might be in vain. Everything he had thought about before might be a dream. How could Xiang Li be willing to accept this? So even if he knew that the cup in front of him was poison, as long as it could quench his thirst, he would drink it without hesitation. Chu Xiu's mouth curved into a smile and said, Your Highness, rest assured. You will know in the future that you will not regret cooperating with me. But for now, Your Highness needs to help me with one thing. That is to help me arrange some Yinma clan members into the northern Yan court. They don't need a high position, as long as they can move freely in Yanjing City. Xiang Li nodded woodenly. Since he had already agreed to Chu Xiu's request, there was no turning back. Chu Xiu's figure was instantly wrapped in a layer of pitch-black devil qi. He hid in the darkness and disappeared in the blink of an eye. After leaving the prince's residence, Lu Jianghu sighed in Chu Xiu's mind, I didn't realize that you're quite glib with your words. You easily tricked that bunch of brats. Chu Xiu said indifferently, Tricked? I didn't trick them. If you want someone to cooperate with you wholeheartedly, you must let them see the benefits. Whether it is Xiang Wu or Xiang Li, as long as we succeed, one of them can ascend to the throne, while the other will have a bright future. He can control the entire northern Yan military. I didn't lie to them about these benefits. Tricking them is only a temporary benefit. Only benefits are eternal choices. Lu Jianghu didn't say anything else because he suddenly realized that he, or the Kunlun devil cult of the past, had actually done a lot of stupid things. Part of Chu Xiu's style of doing things was actually very similar to the Kunlun devil cult of the past. They were extremely ruthless and would not stop until they were dead. But at the same time, Chu Xiu had another style of doing things that the Kunlun devil cult had neglected, and that was to leave a path for others. Using benefits to connect all parties, the one who would benefit in the end would be himself, but he would not stop others from having no way out. And the Kunlun devil cult of the past had obviously gone too far. It was to the extent that if the Kunlun devil cult was not destroyed, the other martial arts forces would not be able to make a name for themselves. In this way, when the Kunlun devil cult was destroyed, it was not strange that the major sects could be so united. His own arrangements were temporarily completed, and it was time for Chu Xiu to consider the matter of the Great Light Temple. It was a big project to insert the Yinma lineage into the northern Yan imperial court, and it required meticulous work. If it was done too hastily and was discovered by others, it would be terrible. Therefore, during this period of time, Chu Xiu also had to pretend to be a loyal subject for a period of time. For now, he had to deceive the task in front of him. Chu Xiu asked Lu Jianghu, You said that there are treasures buried near the Great Light Temple. What exactly is buried there? Since he had already told Chu Xiu everything, Lu Jianghu did not hide anything. He said directly, Actually, there are 3 places where the treasures are hidden. One was personally buried by me, and it's the closest to the Great Light Temple. The other 2 were buried by the bastards under me. I only know the general location. The things that the bastards buried were just some common cultivation resources and so on. They were used as backups, and there was nothing special about them. As for the things that I personally buried, it was actually some blood. The blood of some powerhouses from 500 years ago. Chu Xiu's heart skipped a beat. He asked, How strong were they? Lu Jianghu laughed coldly and said, How strong were they? They were stronger than you can imagine. 500 years ago, was the current celestial master of the celestial master abode of Mount Longhu strong enough? Was the personal disciple of the celestial master Ning Xuanji, the deputy sect leader of the true martial arts sect, strong enough? Was the current abbot of the Great Light Temple, who had cultivated the indestructible golden body, strong enough? Was Kun Wu, who was ranked 3rd in the world-famous sword manual, and Gu Qingqing, the powerhouse of the Windcloud Sword Tomb, known as the Sword Saint, strong enough? If these people are not strong enough, I even have a drop of Patriarch Dugu's blood. Tell me, is it strong enough? Chapter 783. Lu Jianghu really shocked Chu Xiu this time. God knows where he got the blood of so many powerhouses. The people he mentioned should have reached the heaven and earth mystic illumination 500 years ago. The most surprising thing was that he even got a drop of Dugu Weiwei's blood. How did he do it? Moreover, Chu Xiu roughly understood why Lu Jianghu didn't put these things in the Kunlun devil cult but in the outside world. It seemed that there was a drop of Dugu Weiwei's blood among them. This was a bit too taboo. With your strength back then, how did you get the blood of these powerhouses? Chu Xiu didn't care about Lu Jianghu's face and asked directly. Lu Jianghu seemed to be humiliated and shouted, "What do you mean? What's wrong with my strength? Are you looking down on me? My position in the holy sect was second only to the 4 great demon sovereigns." Chu Xiu didn't say anything. He kept staring at Lu Jianghu with his spiritual power, which made Lu Jianghu a little embarrassed. Lu Jianghu coughed and hesitated for a moment before he said, "That, I like to study all kinds of martial arts. So when those people fought with the 4 great demon sovereigns, I would usually go and watch." Hearing Lu Jianghu's words, Chu Xiu suddenly realized that this guy was just there to watch and pick up the leftovers. It was just a drop of blood. They were all from the Kunlun devil cult, and Lu Jianghu didn't take anything else. The 4 great demon sovereigns probably wouldn't fall out with him. But how did you get a drop of Dugu Weiwei's blood? Who was it that could injure Dugu Weiwei? Could it be Ning Xuanji? Chu Xiu was also curious about this. It was one thing for Lu Jianghu to pick up the other's blood, but how could Dugu Weiwei be injured? Could it be that Lu Jianghu had watched the battle between Dugu Weiwei and Ning Xuanji? Lu Jianghu shook his head and said, "Of course it's not Ning Xuanji. If Ning Xuanji fought with Sect Master, do you think I would still dare to watch? She was the strongest in the Wind Cloud Sword Mound, and she was known as the #1 swordsman in 1,000 years, Sword Saint Gu Qingqing. This person was indeed a character. He made a bet with the cult leader. If he could win against him in one move, then the people of the Kunlun devil cult would not be allowed to appear within 100 miles of the Wind Cloud Sword Mound. If he loses, then he will lead the entire Wind Cloud Sword Mound to serve the Kunlun devil cult. From then on, he will be the 5th devil lord under the Kunlun devil cult." Chu Xiu frowned and said, "Did he win?" Lu Jianghu sighed and said, "He won, but he also lost. You weren't born in that era, so you don't know how strong the cult leader was. Aside from Ning Xuanji, the cult leader wouldn't lose to anyone. But Gu Qingqing turned into the Kunwu sword's soul and slashed with the strongest sword. She cut the cult leader's hand and gave up her life to win against the cult leader. According to the rules, he won, but at the same time, he lost his life." Chu Xiu was silent, but tempestuous waves had already surged in his heart. Not being born in that era, Chu Xiu really didn't understand how strong Dugu Weiwei was. But through Lu Jianghu's description, Chu Xiu could hear what it meant to be overpowering. The #1 swordsman in 1,000 years, wielding the 3rd-ranked sword in the Sword Book of Famed Swords, was only able to hurt one of Dugu Weiwei's hands. That kind of power was enough to make people feel hopeless. Chu Xiu didn't ask about what happened next, because the Wind Cloud Sword Mound was still there. In the end, Dugu Weiwei must have kept his promise and not touched the Wind Cloud Sword Mound. In fact, this kind of thing was very normal. At Dugu Weiwei's level, he would disdain lying and breaking promises. Right? Why did you collect so many elites' blood? Is it a lot? Can it be used for cultivation? Lu Jianghu shook his head and said, "No, there is only 1 drop of each." "What can a drop of blood be used for?" Chu Xiu practiced the blood god demonic art, and it was very magical. But if he wanted to rely on other people's blood to cultivate, the amount of blood needed was huge. Even a few drops of blood from a supreme expert would be useless. Lu Jianghu snorted and said, "Brat, you got lucky. In the past, this honorable one had just researched a way to use the blood god demonic art. Using the power of blood to imitate the martial intent of the past experts, but using the opponent's blood as a guide. This honorable one named this art the blood shadow art. The cultivation process is already very perfect. Back then, this honorable one placed the blood in the formation to nurture its power, allowing the martial intent to be more complete. But at that time, before this honorable one went to cultivate, something happened. Now you got lucky. After 500 years of nurturing, the martial intent in the blood should have been nurtured to the peak. It can be used directly for cultivation. But brat, let me say this first. The blood of the others belongs to you. I don't have a physical body now, so I can't use it. But you have to keep the blood of one of them for me. I can use it. But whose blood? The 9th Palace Master of the 7 Absolute Palace of Diansong Mountain. She is also an extraordinary woman. The power of the soul transfer art is not inferior to that guy Nangong Wuming's mental demon rotation art. After the nurturing of her blood is successful, it will help to repair the remnant soul, so this honorable one wants it. Chu Xiu nodded. After all, it was someone else's thing and he would be embarrassed to take it all. However, he had never heard of the name 7 Absolute Palace. Of course, this was also normal. The war between the righteous and demonic 500 years ago was enough to be regarded as a great calamity in Jianghu. Countless sects were completely destroyed in this calamity. Just like the Iron Emperor Castle, it was a force that could stand shoulder to shoulder with the Sword King City now. In the end, 500 years ago, it was blown up by an arrow from Dugu Weiwei and was completely annihilated. After learning about the places where the treasures were hidden, Chu Xiu did not immediately take action. Instead, he prepared to return to the Suppression Martial Hall to think about it. He had too many things to do recently. The layout had to be carried out one after another. He had to first complete the layout of the entire Hidden Devil lineage before he could consider the matters of the Great Light Temple. This was also a troublesome matter. Chu Xiu had to go around the Great Light Temple to excavate Lu Jianghe's treasures. At the same time, he had to complete the task given by Xiang Long. No matter what, it would lead the monks of the Great Light Temple out. Now, Chu Xiu did not want to be the knife in Xiang Long's hand and fight head-on with the Great Light Temple. Therefore, he really needed to think about this matter. After returning to the Suppression Martial Hall, he found that Shenfeng of the Giant Spirit Gang was also there. After becoming the leader of the Giant Spirit Gang, he understood his position very well. With Chu Xiu around, he could be unscrupulous in the Northern Yen martial arts world. He could even develop the Giant Spirit Gang to a point where it was stronger than when Fang Dadong was still around. If Chu Xiu was not around, it was estimated that the meddlesome guys would jump out to find trouble with him. Therefore, he could be said to be the most loyal to Chu Xiu. The relationship between the two parties was one where they would suffer together and the other where they would prosper together. Seeing that Chu Xiu had returned, Shenfeng quickly walked over and said with a smile on his face, "Official Chu, previously when you stepped into the Martial Dao Grand Master realm, the gift I gave you was a little shabby. It just so happened that my subordinates found something good recently, so I immediately asked someone to send it over. Just treat it as a congratulatory gift to you." As he spoke, Shenfeng waved his hand directly. Immediately, several members of the Giant Spirit Gang brought over a giant bird with them. The giant bird was as tall as a person. Its head was like an eagle's, its feathers were light blue, and its golden eyes were flashing with a fierce light. If it were not for the 2 chains inscribed with arrays at its feet, which restrained its movements, it would probably peck the few martial artists around it to death. It's the cub of the ancient ferocious beast, the blue sky falcon. It's said to have the bloodline of the golden-winged roc. It can disappear without a trace after flapping its wings. I originally thought that this thing was extinct, but I didn't expect my subordinates to catch a baby bird that accidentally fell into the water in the river. After I learned about it, I immediately asked someone to send it to you, sir. The giant bird was as tall as a person, but it was still just a baby. Of course, if this thing was an adult, even a Martial Dao Grandmaster would not be able to defeat it, and it would not have been caught by the Giant Spirit Gang. Chu Xiu was not interested in this thing, and he did not want to raise a mount or anything. Qinqing Di had a black tiger, and the Holy Lady of the Lunar Worshipping Cult also had a black panther. It did not sound good for him to raise a bird. Therefore, Chu Xiu waved his hand and said, "Reinforce the array on the chains and keep this thing at the door to support the facade." Shen Feiying's face twitched. This sir really did not take the usual path. This was an ancient ferocious beast, but Chu Xiu raised it as a watchdog. His brain circuit was really strange. Of course, Shen Feiying could not be bothered with these things. He gave the gift, and it was not his business what Chu Xiu wanted to do with it. "Gang leader Shen, you know my character. If you have something to say, just say it," Chu Xiu said lightly. Shen Feiying rushed to give him a ferocious beast's baby, not just to curry favor with him. There must be something to ask of someone. Of course, Chu Xiu did not reject this. People like Shen Feiying were the ones who understood the rules. Shen Feiying smiled and said, "As expected, I can't hide it from Lord Shen. It's just a small matter. The Changlin Jiang family, which is close to the Giant Spirit Gang, has fought with the Giant Spirit Gang several times for the trade route. That place originally belonged to the Giant Spirit Gang, but the Jiang family." Before Shen Feiying could finish speaking, Chu Xiu said, "I'll have Tanya go with you later." Shen Feiying was stunned, and then his face immediately bloomed with a smile. He quickly bowed and said, "Thank you, Lord." For the current Chu Xiu, he was too lazy to care about such a small matter. He only knew that Shen Feiying was now following him, and that he was a sensible person. That was enough. Whether it was the Jiang family robbing the Giant Spirit Gang's trade route, or the Giant Spirit Gang robbing the Jiang family's trade route, was it important to Chu Xiu? It was not even as important as what to eat for dinner tonight. After getting a satisfactory reply, Shen Feiying left in high spirits. However, at this time, Chu Xiu looked at Shen Feiying's back and touched his chin. He seemed to have thought of how to deal with the Great Light Temple. Of course, this move was a little disgusting, but it was the Great Light Temple that was disgusting, not him. Chapter 784. Chu Xiu already had a plan in mind for the Great Guangming Temple, but he still had to think it through carefully. If he really provoked Su Ci, who had already stepped into the Heaven and Earth Elemental Enlightenment realm, then not to mention the treasures buried by Lu Jianghe, even if it was the treasures left by Dugu Weiwei, Chu Xiu would run away immediately. Just after Chu Xiu pondered for a few days, before he could officially take action, a person that Chu Xiu did not expect came to him. That person was Bai Wuji of the drifting snow city of the far north. The moment he saw Chu Xiu, Bai Wuji directly bowed to Chu Xiu and said eagerly, "Official Chu, please save my drifting snow city of the far north once. From now on, my drifting snow city of the far north is willing to serve Official Chu as our master, forever and ever." Bai Wuji's words stunned Chu Xiu. What kind of trick was this? Bai Wuji's oath was very serious. Directly recognizing Chu Xiu as his master, this was simply treating himself as a slave. If it was someone else, Chu Xiu would still believe it, but the problem was the drifting snow city of the far north. Chu Xiu did not believe it, especially that guy Bai Hantian. Although he looked rough, he was actually very scheming. Chu Xiu had even been deceived by him once. Chu Xiu said indifferently, "Save your drifting snow city of the far north? With the strength of your drifting snow city of the far north, do you still need me to save you?" Bai Hantian is not someone to be trifled with. Bai Wuji's face had a trace of a complicated expression. "My father is dead, Bai Hanfeng is also dead." Chu Xiu was stunned. Both Martial Dao Grandmasters of the drifting snow city of the far north are dead? What is going on? Who did it? In the past, it was Bai Hantian who made the decision, sacrificing his son in exchange for the interests of the entire drifting snow city of the far north. When Bai Wuji found out about this, he still held a grudge against Bai Hantian. But Bai Hantian was his father after all. Now that Bai Hantian was dead, Bai Wuji's emotions were complicated. Hearing Chu Xiu's question, Bai Wuji sighed. Father died at the hands of the Northern Realm's rogue cultivator, Qi Ling twin swords. Qi Ling's twin swords were not made by one person, but by two people. Moreover, they were twins. When the two of them learned the sword together, their mental state was the same. When they worked together, their power would increase by several folds. These two people had a grudge with my father when he was young, but because of the power of the Drifts Now city, They didn't dare to seek revenge. Later on, the two of them hid in the Chilling Mountains to cultivate. After both of them became martial Dao Grand Masters, they didn't dare to provoke my father. Not too long ago, the incident in the Drift Snow City happened and they found an opportunity to sneak attack their father when he was out alone, killing him. After my father died, all the major powers in the northern realms coveted our Drift Snow City, suppressing us both in the open and in the dark. Bai Hanfeng also died in the hands of the evil extreme sect's rising star, Yitanxia. Right now, our Drift Snow City is in a precarious situation. If official Chu is willing to help our Drift Snow City is naturally willing to serve official Chu as our master. Honestly speaking, ever since the incident in the Drift Snow City, Chu Xiu really didn't pay much attention to the matters of the Drift Snow City. The Drift Snow City used a dead man to scare the surrounding powers for so many years. The consequences were very severe. To the surrounding powers, if the Drift Snow City really had the strength, they would also obediently submit to it. The strong preyed on the weak. This was a very common thing in the pugilistic world. But in the end, the Drift Snow City actually used such a method to deceive them. At this instant, the powers of the northern realms all felt a sense of humiliation. Not only did the Drift Snow City humiliate their character, but they also humiliated their intelligence. So from that time onwards, Chu Xiu was sure that the Drift Snow City would usher in a period of weakness, and there was even a possibility that they would be annihilated. But he didn't expect that this time would come so quickly. How long had it been since then, and the Drift Snow City actually couldn't hold on any longer? This was truly a case of everyone kicking a collapsing wall. Chu Xiu rubbed his chin and thought for a moment. Since the two grandmasters of your Drift Snow City have been killed, how did you manage to hold on until now? Bai Wuji sighed. My third uncle, Bai Xiaoyun, was forced to step into the martial Dao Grandmaster stage by the omniscient sect. That's how he managed to recover for the time being. But there are countless experts in the Drift Snow City. A Grandmaster won't be able to hold on for long. So I can only ask for help from you, official Chu. Bai Wuji looked at Chu Xiu with a pleading gaze. He was now forced into a corner. The Drift Snow City was surrounded by enemies on all sides. Who could he ask for help from? He could ask the Great Light Temple. They also liked to meddle in other people's business. But the things the Great Light Temple meddled in were all related to the demonic path, and this time, although there were people from the demonic path who took action, in fact, it was the Drift Snow City who brought this upon themselves. The Great Light Temple would not intervene. So after thinking about it, the only one who could help the Drift Snow City now was Chu Xiu. Bai Wuji knew Chu Xiu for a very long time, so he was very clear that if he wanted Chu Xiu to step forward, there was only one thing that could move him, and that was benefits. And for the Drift Snow City, the only thing they could offer was themselves. If this still couldn't move Chu Xiu, then Bai Wuji would really be in despair. Chu Xiu looked at Bai Wuji and gently raised his eyebrows. To tell the truth, he was also a little surprised by Bai Wuji's current change. In the past, when Chu Xiu first met Bai Wuji, the other party was arrogant and had no regard for anyone and everyone. He didn't even put Nye Donglu in his eyes, who was much more famous than him at that time. The martial world is like a knife. The years drive people to grow old. Bai Wuji's character had been tempered by all kinds of setbacks and was no longer the same as the past. If it was the Bai Wuji of the past, he would rather die than choose to submit to Chu Xiu and bow his head in front of Chu Xiu. Amidst the silence, when Bai Wuji was on the verge of despair, Chu Xiu finally spoke. I can help you, but I'm very curious about one thing. Don't you hate the Northern Drift Snow City? After all, you were almost used as fuel and sacrificed to a dead person. Bai Wuji was silent for a long time. If I say I don't resent them, that would be a lie. But the Drift Snow City is the place where I was born and raised. A force that has been passed down for thousands of years. I don't want to see the Drift Snow City disappear completely in my generation. Since father and the others are wrong, then I will make up for the Drift Snow City in the future. Chu Xiu said indifferently, then have you ever thought that if you choose to follow me, the Drift Snow City might die a more miserable death in the end? You know my identity, Once you choose to join me, then some things will no longer be up to you. Although the Drifts Now city was now on the verge of annihilation, but no matter what, it was still a great force that had been passed down for thousands of years. The foundation was the Drifts Now city's greatest advantage. As long as they could survive this calamity, the Drifts Now city would definitely have a chance to recover in the future. Chu Xiu would not suffer a loss by taking the Drifts Now city under his command at this time. Moreover, after taking the Drifts Now city, it would also be of help to his plan against the Great Guangming Temple. But Chu Xiu could tolerate everything else, but what he could not tolerate the most was traitors. If the Drifts Now city chose to betray them in the end, the consequences would be even worse than being annihilated now. Bai Wuji said firmly, "In life, every moment is a gamble. My father made the wrong bet. He placed his bet on a dead man. Now I'm betting on you, official Chu. Regardless of success or failure, I am willing to bear the consequences." Chu Xiu stood up and said in a deep voice, "It's good that you are prepared. Later, I will let Pang Hu personally lead some people to your Drifts Now city." Bai Wuji's face showed a trace of difficulty. "Sir, just Pang Hu alone may not be enough." Chu Xiu raised his eyebrows and said, "Do you think that my name, Chu Xiu, can't control people?" With Chu Xiu's ferocious reputation in the northern Yen pugilistic world, coupled with the presence of a martial arts grandmaster like Pang Hu, other than those from the Temple of Great Light, everyone else would have to weigh their own weight. Bai Wuji shook his head quickly and said, "I don't mean that. It's just that the crisis my Drifts Now city is encountering this time is a bit big. Previously, the people of the Evil Pole sect took the initiative to attack us, and Yi Tianxie even killed Bai Hanfeng. After my third uncle stepped into the martial arts master realm, he was not familiar with the power of the real pellet state. He fought with him and seriously injured him. Yi Tianxie is the next heir of the Evil Pole sect, and his status is noble. Now that he is seriously injured by my Drifts Now city, I believe the Evil Pole sect will definitely not let it go, so I ask her to go in person." Hearing Bai Wuji say this, Chu Xiu was really a little surprised. Chu Xiu knew Yi Tianxie. He had fought with Yi Tianxie more than once in the early days. Among the bright demon lineage, this person was indeed a character, not to mention the evil geniuses of the moon-worshipping cult. He practiced the vicious beast technique with a human body, and he even swallowed the vicious beast's Niden. His power was terrifying. After Chu Xiu and others stepped into the martial arts master realm one after another, Yi Tianxie's strength was enough to rank in the top 3 of the Longhu list. It was normal for such a person to kill a martial Dao grandmaster above his level, so Chu Xiu was not surprised at all. But by Xiao Tian, a person who had just stepped into the martial arts master realm and hadn't even fully stabilized his own power, could seriously injure Yi Tianxie. This was strange. "Well, I will go with you. The moon-worshipping cult has been hit hard, and the Evil Pole sect still has the mood to come out and make trouble. It seems that they didn't use their full strength in that battle." The corners of Chu Xiu's mouth could not help but reveal a faint sneer. The Evil Pole sect followed the moon-worshipping cult's lead. Even if it was far away in the northern Yen, the Evil Pole sect should have gone all out in the last war between the righteous and demonic factions. But now it seemed that the power of the Evil Pole sect was not affected. Just when Chu Xiu gathered the people and was ready to set off, Lu Fengxian suddenly walked out and said, "Wait, Brother Chu, take me with you. It's too boring to cultivate behind closed doors all day. I will also help." Chu Xiu said in surprise, "How many days have you been behind closed doors? Don't you need to familiarize yourself with the power of the real pellet state?" LV Fengxian rubbed her head and shook her head. "I don't think that's necessary. I feel very familiar with my current power, as if I should have been able to control it in the first place. I don't know if this is the effect of LV Wenho's soul fragment." Chu Xiu was a little speechless. People are really different. Some people's luck is so good that they can even skip the process of cultivating behind closed doors. Chapter 785. In the hall of the fluttering snow city, the lights were dim. Compared to the bustling scene before, it was like a different place. A pale middle-aged man sat below. Above him was the exclusive seat of the fluttering Snow City Lord, but he didn't take it. This person was the only martial arts grandmaster in the entire fluttering Snow City, Bai Shan. In the fluttering Snow City, Bai Wuji had the identity of the heir and status, while Bai Xiaotian had the strength. With the two of them, the fluttering Snow City did not collapse. Bai Xiaotian was previously a collateral relative of the fluttering Snow City. He was middle-aged and was a deacon of the fluttering Snow City. After all, it was a major force that had existed for thousands of years. Although there were not many martial arts grandmasters in the fluttering Snow City, there were many deacons like Bai Xiaotian who had reached the unity of heaven and man realm. It was just that Bai Xiaotian had always been very low-key in the past. In addition, he was a collateral relative, so he did not attract much attention. No one expected that he would be the one to turn the tide and save the fluttering Snow City. Of course, he could only save the fluttering Snow City once, but not forever. Because the evil sect thought that the old ancestor of the fluttering Snow City was still around, they had been living in peace with the fluttering Snow City for so many years. There were no conflicts between the two sides. Even because of their identity as a demonic sect, the evil sect felt a sense of inferiority when facing the fluttering Snow City. After all, in the entire north, there was only one demonic sect, the evil sect. Moreover, it was right under the nose of the Great Light Temple. If they did not keep a low profile, they would have been killed long ago. Now that the lie of the fluttering Snow City had been exposed, and Bai Xiaotian had seriously injured Yi Tianxie, one could imagine what kind of revenge the fluttering Snow City would face. In the entire fluttering Snow City, other than the Bai clan, there were also some disciples with other surnames who were managers or deacons. As soon as the news came out, some of these people had already run away. Even the Bai clan was unsettled. This huge fluttering Snow City seemed to be on the verge of collapse. Looking up at the seat that belonged to the city lord, Bai Xiaoan coughed and laughed self-deprecatingly. The position of City Lord of the Drifts Now City was something that even Bai Xiaotian didn't dare to think about in the past. But now, he didn't even have the interest to sit there. He was just a collateral relative of the northern drifting Snow City. Logically speaking, now that he had become a martial Dao Grandmaster, he would be a prominent figure no matter where he went. There was no need for him to be buried together with the northern drifting Snow City, but he didn't want to leave. It wasn't that Bai Xiaoyan was very loyal to the Bai clan. In fact, the treatment he received as a branch family disciple wasn't bad, but at the very least, it couldn't be compared to the treatment he received from the main family. It would be a lie to say that he didn't have any resentment towards the Bai clan. What he wanted to protect here wasn't the Bai clan but the entire Drifts Now City of the extreme north. This was a place that contained half of his memories. Chu Xiu had once asked Bai Wuji why he wanted to protect the Drifts Now City. Bai Wuji's answer was the same as Bai Xiaoyan's. This was why the two of them, an old man and a young man, were able to stabilize the entire Drifts Now City, preventing it from collapsing. Bai Xiaotian knew that Bai Wuji had gone to seek help from Chu Xiu. Although Chu Xiu had agreed, he didn't have much hope. Rather than relying on outsiders, he might as well fight to the death himself. The reason why he didn't stop Bai Wuji was because he hoped that Bai Wuji could escape this calamity and live on. As for himself, he was born here, grew up here, and died here in the end. It didn't seem like a bad choice either. At this moment, a disciple suddenly ran in anxiously, "City Lord! Bad news! The omniscient sect has come knocking." Bai Xiaoyan waved his hand and said, "How many times have I said it? I'm not the city lord. The Drifts Now City of the extreme north no longer has a city lord. Don't panic, so what if the omniscient sect is here?" Before this, the omniscient sect didn't even dare to speak loudly in front of our Drifts Now City. Even at a time like this, don't let our Drifts Now City lose face. As he spoke, Bai Xiaoyan walked straight out of the hall. Outside the Drifts Now City of the extreme north, several hundred omniscient sect martial artists were glaring at the frozen city in front of them with malevolent demonic chi and killing intent. Although the omniscient sect only sent several hundred people, these several hundred people were the elites of the entire omniscient sect. It was enough to destroy the Drifts Now city of the extreme north that was already on its last breaths. The leader was a martial artist completely shrouded in black robes, exuding a sinister demonic chi fluctuation that fused with the surrounding heaven and earth essence energy. Even the white snow under his feet was dyed black. This person was the hall master of the omniscient sect's demon sacrifice hall, Yan Lubing. Although this person was not famous in the pugilistic world, in the omniscient sect, he was one of the few important characters second only to the sect master. The omniscient sect developed in a low-profile manner in the northern plains. The entire omniscient sect had several halls, each with their own duties. Yan Liubing's demon sacrifice hall was responsible for worshipping the demon god. 500 years ago, when the omniscient sect was still a subordinate of the Kunlun devil cult, the demon sacrifice hall worshipped Duguweiwei. Their bootlicking was simply too blatant. Therefore, the demon sacrifice hall master of that era had an extremely high status, even having the status of a demon envoy of the Kunlun devil cult like the sect master of the omniscient sect. Of course, even if the omniscient sect had changed their target of worship, their strength would still be extraordinary. At this time, looking at the Drifts Now city of the extreme north, Yan Lubing lightly said, "Tianxie, what did you do?" The Drifts Now city of the extreme north that was already on the verge of collapse was turned into such a state by you? Such a great merit has been turned into a laughingstock by you. Previously, the omniscient sect had sent a junior like Yi Tianxie to deal with the Drifts Now city of the extreme north. It was not arrogance, but the omniscient sect deliberately wanted to create merit and qualifications for Yi Tianxie so that he could smoothly take over the omniscient sect in the future. At that time, the Drifts Now city of the extreme north was already in a state of panic, and Yi Tianxie himself had the strength comparable to a martial Dao grandmaster, so it should not be a problem for him to destroy the Drifts Now city of the extreme north. Among the entire younger generation of martial artists, only Chu Xiu had done something to destroy the forces of the pugilistic world. Now, if Yi Tianxie could successfully destroy the Drifts Now city of the extreme north, not to mention being comparable to Chu Xiu, he might at least be able to surpass Fang Qishao on the Longhu leaderboard and become the first on the Longhu leaderboard. In the end, who would have thought that such a simple matter would be messed up by him? Yi Tianxie said with a sullen expression, that Bai Hanfeng was so weak. Who would have thought that someone in the Drifts Now city of the extreme north would break through to the martial Dao Grandmaster realm and start fighting with his life before familiarizing himself with his power? It doesn't matter if he wants to die, but I haven't lived long enough. If I don't run away, I'm afraid I'll be dragged down with him. Speaking of which, Yi Tianxie was also very sullen. Previously he rushed to help the moon-worshipping sect, but in the end he did not end up well. He was scolded by the holy maiden of the moon-worshipping sect, saying that he was not as good as Chu Xiu who was invited to help. Moreover, before Zhong Xian stepped into the martial Dao Grandmaster realm, he also exchanged a few moves with him, causing him to suffer a loss. To put it simply, after the battle between the righteous and the demonic, some people benefited and some became famous. Only he, Yi Tianxie, did not get anything. Moreover, when he returned to his own territory, he messed up such a simple task. Yan Lubing did not say anything, only shaking her head with slight pity. Yi Tianxie's strength was considered very good among the young people of the omniscient sect, but compared to monsters like Chu Xiu and Zhang Qingxin, he was still too far away. He and the sect master were probably too harsh on them. At this moment, Bai Xiaotian walked up the city wall with his men and looked at the people of the omniscient sect. He said coldly, "When a tiger falls to the plains, he will be bullied by dogs. Back then, when my Drifts Now city of the extreme north was at its peak, did you guys dare to be so presumptuous?" Yan Lubing said indifferently, "How can a fox borrowing the tiger's might be considered a tiger? What a joke. If you guys didn't use that dead person to prop up the facade, do you think your Drifts Now city of the extreme north can still exist until now?" Bai Xiaotian sneered, "Then didn't your omniscient sect also be scared by a dead person for decades?" After a moment of silence, Yan Lubing said indifferently, "I'm not here to talk nonsense with you guys. You guys know why my omniscient sect is here. Surrender and hand over the entire Drifts Now city of the extreme north and everything within it. I can make the decision and spare your lives. Behind by Hantian, the eyes of some Drifts Now city of the extreme north even wavered a little. With the current strength of the extreme north's Drifts Now city, they could not stop the omniscient sect at all. Now that the other party even said such words, if they resisted, then they would really be resisting to their deaths. Seeing the expressions of the others, Bai Xiaoyan sighed and said, "If you guys want to surrender, then surrender." Some of the martial artists present were somewhat tempted, but no one stood out. Being a traitor in public, the martial artists of the extreme north's Drifts Now city were not shameless to such an extent. But at this time, Bai Hantian said coldly, "But you guys can surrender, but I can't. Right now, all the array formations in the extreme north's Drifts Now city have been activated by me. Once your omniscient sect attacks, I will self-destruct the array formations and destroy the entire Drifts Now city of the extreme north rather than let you succeed." Yan Lubing smiled coldly and said, "Using your own things to threaten me? What a joke. You guys are not willing to live, and you guys are not willing to live. Fine then, I'll take you guys to sacrifice to the demonic god and let you guys have a taste of what it means to be stuck between life and death." Yan Lubing also did not want to talk nonsense with the people of the extreme north's Drifts Now city. He was just about to make a move when he heard a voice. "Sacrifice to the demonic god? I seem to have heard of it before. Wasn't the one your omniscient sect worshipped previously Dugawewe? Why, now it has changed to some other unorthodox evil ghosts. Your faith is so weak, how laughable." Yan Liobing's black robes revealed a cold glint. To dare humiliate his omniscient sect like this? Just who was so daring? But when he turned his head and saw Chu Xiu coming over with a group of people, Yan Lubing and Yi Tianxie beside him had their expressions change. Why was Chu Xiu here? Yan Lubing frowned and said, "Chu Xiu, if I remember correctly, the extreme north's Drifts Now city seems to have enmity with you too. Could it be that you still want to repay enmity with kindness and save the extreme north's Drifts Now city? When did you, Chu Xiu, become so kind?" Looking at the people of the omniscient sect, Chu Xiu's face did not have the slightest expression. He just said indifferently, "Whether I have good intentions or bad intentions, I don't need you guys to guess. Now, the extreme north's Drifts Now city has already submitted to my subduing martial hall. You guys can get lost." Chapter 786. When facing the people from the evil extreme sect, Chu Xiu's attitude could only be described as arrogant. With Chu Xiu's current identity and status, he could already talk to the 9 divine magispriests of the moon-worshipping cult as equals. Chu Xiu really did not take the evil extreme sect, which existed by licking the moon-worshipping cult's boots. Moreover, the evil extreme sect had betrayed the evil extreme sect in the past. Most of the sects of the Hidden Devil clan hated the evil extreme sect to the core, so Chu Xiu did not need to be polite to him. Yan Liobing's expression instantly darkened to the extreme. He snorted coldly and said, "Chu Xiu, you really don't know what's good for you. Considering that we are both of the devil path, my evil extreme sect has never made things difficult for you when you established the martial suppression hall and established a foothold in the northern Yen. Now, it's just a personal grudge between my evil extreme sect and the northern fluttering snow city, but you want to interfere. What right do you have?" Chu Xiu smiled, but his expression suddenly turned cold. "What right do you have? Just based on the current situation, you don't even have the right to talk about conditions and rules with me. If you want to talk to me, first call out your evil extreme sect's leader. You are not qualified." Although Chu Xiu's words were extremely arrogant, in reality, Chu Xiu really did have the right to be so arrogant. And Yan Lubing also knew about this. Otherwise, as a dignified martial arts master and the leader of the demon-worshipping hall, he was also a prominent figure in the evil extreme sect. If it were anyone else pointing at his nose and telling him to scram, he would probably have long used him as food and offered him to the fiend god. In the end, he was scolded by Chu Xiu to scram, but now, Yan Lubing first tried to reason with Chu Xiu. One could imagine that even in Yan Liobing's heart, He unconsciously put his position below Chu Xiu. But after being rebuked by Chu Xiu twice in a row, even if Yan Liubing's temper was better, he could not help it. The evil black gas around him corroded the ground under his feet, turning the white snow into black poisonous snow. The black robe was filled with black mist, and it even condensed into the shadow of a demon god, hovering behind him. Chu Xiu's eyes narrowed. He couldn't be bothered to talk nonsense with Yan Liubing and directly prepared to make a move. Actually, if it were anyone else, Chu Xiu would have been more reasonable. However, there was no need for him to do so against the extreme evil sect. Chu Xiu was from the Inma clan. As the traitor of the Kunlun devil cult, the evil extreme sect was hated by many martial artists of the Inma clan. They were even more hated than the moon-worshipping cult. The identities of the two sides could already be seen. It was impossible for the two to speak calmly. The sooner they fought, the sooner they could settle things. But just as Chu Xiu was about to make a move, Lu Fengxian suddenly stepped forward and pulled Chu Xiu back. She said in a low voice, "Brother Chu, at your current position, if you still have to trouble yourself to personally deal with some small characters, it's a little too degrading. Leave this one to me." Lu Fengxian walked out with halberd in hand and stood in front of Chu Xiu. For Chu Xiu, he never cared about face when doing things. A lion would use its full strength to capture a rabbit. If Chu Xiu really wanted to kill someone, he did not care whether the other party was male or female, or status, not to mention strength or strength. At this time, Lu Fengxian stood up not only to fight for Chu Xiu's face, but most importantly he felt that he owed Chu Xiu too much. Although he helped when Chu Xiu was besieged the first time, with Lu Fengxian's strength at that time, it could only be said to be icing on the cake. Last time, when Chu Xiu saved him, it was really charcoal in snowy weather. Lu Fengxian was the kind of person who would return the favor when others treated him well. Now that Chu Xiu had done his best, Lu Fengxian did not even know how to return the favor. He could only help Chu Xiu as much as he could. Chu Xiu knew Lu Fengxian's intentions. Moreover, he wanted to see how strong Lu Fengxian had become after stepping into the martial Dao Grandmaster realm. Therefore, Chu Xiu did not decline. He nodded and said, "All right, Brother Lu, you do it." When Yan Liubing saw that Chu Xiu and Lu Fengxian were actually giving way and treating him like a commodity, he could not help but yell angrily, "You guys are courting death." Facing Chu Xiu, who had once killed a true fire spirit refinement cultivator, Yan Liubing was indeed a little uneasy. However, facing Lu Fengxian, who had just stepped into the martial Dao Grandmaster realm, Yan Liubing felt that the other party was courting death. Among the young talents of this generation, there were no martial Dao Grandmasters who dared to underestimate Chu Xiu, Zhang Qingjin, and Zhong Xian when they were at the Unity of Heaven and Man stage. The remaining second echelon were Feng Qishao, Ying Bailu, Lu Fengxian, and the others. Although their strength was also extraordinary, in the hearts of most people in the pugilistic world, they were inferior to Chu Xiu and the others. Yan Liubing had no confidence against Chu Xiu, but against Lu Fengxian, who had just stepped into the martial Dao Grandmaster realm, how could he not be confident? Lu Fengxian did not say anything and walked out with halberd in her hand. Actually, Lu Fengxian was a very cultured person. For example, Chu Xiu sometimes had a sharp tongue and would make the other party fly into a rage. However, when did one ever see Lu Fengxian cursing when fighting someone? Even when Yan Fian and the Yu Nu Gong tricked him, Lu Fengxian did not say anything overboard. Furthermore, unlike Li Feilian, who did not speak much and attacked immediately, Lu Fengxian stood out and first cupped her fists at Yan Liubing. After Yan Liubing snorted coldly, Lu Fengxian directly smashed down with her halberd. With a bang, a violent aura suddenly erupted, shaking heaven and earth and shattering mountains and rivers. The moment Lu Fengxian smashed down with her halberd, Yan Liubing's expression also changed. There was no change in technique, only power. It could be said to be the ultimate power, a power that made people feel despair. Yan Liubing formed a seal with both hands, and the black demon chi around him surged, transforming into a demon god with two horns on its head. It walked out of the black fog and let out an ear-piercing roar, facing Lu Fengxian's halberd. The evil extreme sect's cultivation method mainly emphasized the word evil. Yi Tianxie cultivated the cultivation method of a ferocious beast with a human body, which was already evil enough. Yan Lubing of the Demon Sacrifice Hall, on the other hand, used the demon god skeleton that had been passed down from ancient times to worship day and night, obtaining a trace of the demon god's true intent, and then using his own gang energy to imitate it, which was also very evil. However, under Lu Fengxian's halberd, the demon god with 2 horns on its head was directly smashed into pieces, exploding into a pile of black fog. Yan Liubing's expression suddenly changed, and the black demon qi transformed into a pair of wings behind him. A black shadow flashed, and he instantly retreated hundreds of feet away. Lu Fengxian's halberd smashed onto the place where Yan Lubing was previously standing without any hesitation. Instantly, a huge crater that was hundreds of feet wide appeared on the ground. The ground trembled, and huge cracks continuously extended. Lu Fengxian's halberd strike was actually like an earth dragon turning over its body, and it was comparable to the might of the heavens and earth. Holding the halberd forward, the demon god's unparalleled halberd was unleashed to the extreme by Lu Fengxian, and it continued smashing towards Yan Lubing with an incomparably violent aura. Yan Lubing roared angrily, and countless strange demon gods with wings condensed in the black fog, charging towards Lu Fengxian, but they were all completely smashed by the demon god's unparalleled halberd. In reality, the devil gods worshipped by the demon sacrifice hall weren't true devil gods. Some were only powerful ancient vicious beasts, but they carried a lot of evil power, which led to them being worshipped by those ignorant people of the archaic era. In all these years, the evil extreme sect had found many such things, so the demon sacrifice hall worshipped more than one demon god. It was a pity that these things were extremely weak in front of Lu Fengxian, and they could not even block a single strike of his halberd. Chu Xiu's face was expressionless, and he was not worried about Lu Fengxian in the slightest. Actually, Lu Fengxian's strength was also looked down upon by many people of the pugilistic world. Compared to Chu Xiu, who had made enemies everywhere, Lu Fengxian really did not have any enemies in the pugilistic world that he would not rest until he was dead. Therefore, this also caused Lu Fengxian to rarely use his full strength, and everyone had indeed somewhat underestimated his strength. Especially now that Yan Lubing was still using this method of stellar energy to clash head-on with Lu Fengxian, this was practically seeking death in Chu Xiu's view. Whose martial arts had Lu Fengxian inherited? The reincarnated demon god, Lu Wenhou. That was a powerful existence that could make true demon gods bow their heads in ancient times, and these inanimate things formed from stellar energy wanted to harm Lu Fengxian. It was simply wishful thinking. Seeing that his attacks had all turned into nothingness in front of Lu Fengxian, and that he was even being forced back step by step, Yan Lubing roared angrily. His black robes fluttered, and as demonic qi roared, his appearance was finally revealed to everyone. Now, Chu Xiu finally knew why Yan Lubing always hid his body in the black robes. It was because Yan Lubing had already completely lost his human appearance. The left side of Yan Liubing's face was already pitch black, and there were even blood-colored demonic markings surging on it. And on the right side of his face, sinister-looking thick blood vessels bulged, and he simply did not look human at all. It was unknown if there was a problem with the cultivation method he cultivated, or if the cultivation method of the demon sacrifice hall was simply so strange. Boundless demonic qi gathered in Yan Liubing's left hand, but his left hand instantly became incomparably pale, as if all the blood had been sucked out. He stretched out a hand, and instantly, demonic clouds gathered. A huge hand completely condensed from demonic qi seemed to cover the sky, and it suddenly came crashing down, grabbing towards Lu Fengxian's head. When Yan Lubing was young, he was daring and crazy. He had once accidentally obtained a strange hand bone that did not seem to belong to a human, and it contained extremely great power. He had actually transplanted it into his left arm, and even though he had obtained this demon god's hand that could be said to be powerful, it had also completely destroyed his appearance, and that was how the demonic markings on the left side of his face had appeared. But the might of this hand was extremely great. Once it was used, it would even devour his vital energy, so normally, Unless he was fighting with his life on the line, Yan Lubing almost didn't use it, and it could be imagined to what extent he had been forced to by Lu Fengxian. But facing this attack, Lu Fengxian's expression did not change in the slightest. The halberd in his hand suddenly became a peerless divine weapon, flickering with a violent and ferocious might. With a smash of the halberd, the demon god's hand shattered with a bang, and Yan Liubing's entire body was completely sent flying by this halberd. Chapter 787. Lu Fengxian's strength had even somewhat exceeded Chu Xiu's expectations. Although Yan Lubing was not well known in the Jianghu, he was indeed a character. He dared to use demonic arts to refine himself into that appearance that was neither human nor ghost. Ordinary people really could not do such a thing. Especially his last devil's hand, its power was already considered extremely strong, but it was still smashed away by Lu Fengxian's halberd. Once Lu Fengxian, who usually looked peaceful, made a move, its power was simply extremely violent. Yan Lubing was smashed by Lu Fengxian's halberd and flew dozens of feet away. He instantly spat out a mouthful of blood. The demonic aura around him dissipated, and his face was pale and horrified. "Go!" Yan Lubing spat out a word without saying anything else. He turned around and retreated with the people of Evil Pole sect. He could be considered to be sensible. He could not even defeat Lu Fengxian, let alone Chu Xiu. Most importantly, he could see a look of indifference on Chu Xiu's face, without the slightest scruple or care. If he really stubbornly resisted to the end, it was estimated that Chu Xiu would really kill him. At this time, even the people of Jianghu Hall under Chu Xiu were looking at Lu Fengxian with shock. They all knew that Chu Xiu and Lu Fengxian were good friends. Even this time, Chu Xiu specially went to Eastern Qi to save Lu Fengxian. This matter had long been spread throughout the Jianghu because of the wind-sweeping building. Previously, they were still puzzled in their hearts. Official Chu was really loyal to his friends, but the problem was that the price he paid was a little too much. But now that they saw Lu Fengxian's strength, their doubts had disappeared. Even from the most utilitarian point of view, it was worth it to be able to make friends with this kind of strength. At this moment, Bai Xiaotian of the Northern Drifts Now City led a group of disciples and walked out. He bowed to Chu Xiu. Many thanks to official Chu for lending a helping hand. Chu Xiu shook his head. "I'm not helping you. I have no reason to help your Drifts Now City for no reason. I'm just protecting what belongs to me. Bai Wuji has already sold the Drifting Snow City to me. How can I not protect my own property?" Bai Xiaotian's face revealed a trace of astonishment. Chu Xiu's gaze was also fixed on Bai Xiaotian. Right now, within the Drifts Now City of the extreme north, this man was the strongest. Even if he were to sit on the seat of the city lord, it would only be fitting for him to do so. Therefore, Chu Xiu wanted to see if he was willing to submit to him. If Bai Xiaotian really had other intentions, Chu Xiu didn't mind finishing him off on the spot. In any case, he only needed an obedient dog and not a disloyal wolf. Fortunately, Bai Xiaotian really didn't have any ambitions. Even when the Drifts Now City was in a difficult situation, Bai Xiaotian didn't choose to flee or sit on the seat of the city lord, let alone now. Therefore Bai Xiaotian was only slightly stunned. He then replied, "Since Wuji has already made his decision, I will naturally submit." From Bai Xiaotian's point of view, it was a good thing that Chu Xiu could take over the Drifts Now City. At the very least, to the Drifts Now City which had enemies on all sides, with Chu Xiu's protection, they would be able to fend off a large number of people with ill intentions. Chu Xiu waved his hand. "City Lord Bai, you have made the right choice." Bai Shan shook his head. "Official Chu, you are wrong. I don't intend to be the city lord. The seat of the city lord belongs to Wuji." The moment these words came out, even Bai Wuji was extremely shocked. He hurriedly said, "Third uncle, in the Drifts Now City, you are the strongest. If you don't want to be the city lord, how can I be?" Bai Xiaotian shook his head. "Wuji, I have never thought about the city lord position. No matter what, it should be yours. Right now, what the Drifts Now City needs isn't strength but stability. Your seniority and reputation are all here while I am just a branch disciple. Although my strength has improved greatly, my prestige is still here. My words might not be as effective as yours. Therefore, the city lord position should still be yours. I will only be responsible for assisting from the side. That should be enough. Bai Wuji still wanted to say something, but when he saw the resolute look in by Xiaoyan's eyes, he could only nod his head in agreement. Chu Xiu clapped his hands and said, "The problem of your drifts now city has been solved. Now, it's time to talk about my Jianghu Hall's problem." Bai Wuji's character changed very quickly. He cupped his hands respectfully and said, "Official Chu, if you have any orders, just say it." Chu Xiu squinted his eyes and said, "Go and inform the forces that are still related to your drifts now city. Tell them to come to the Jianghu Hall in 5 days. You don't need to know the content of the discussion for the time being. You only need to know that no matter when, your drifts now city must unconditionally stand on my side." Chu Xiu looked deeply at Bai Wuji and Bai Shan, and said in a deep voice, "Including me sending you to your death." Bai Wuji took a deep breath and said, "Yes, sir." After that, Chu Xiu turned and left with his people. When Chu Xiu and the others were gone, Bai Wuji sighed and said, "Third uncle, do you think my decision this time is wrong?" Bai Xiaoyan shook his head and said, "Yes, you did a good job. In the entire northern Yanland, no one is more suitable than Chu Xiu to be the most reliable backer. And Chu Xiu is right. Even if Chu Xiu asks us to die now, we can only do as he says. Because if there is no Chu Xiu, I'm afraid we will die faster." At this time, Chu Xiu did not care what Bai Wuji and the others thought. After returning to the Jianghu Hall, Chu Xiu immediately gathered people and asked all the sects and families in the Jianghu Hall to come to the Jianghu Hall for a discussion. The content of the discussion was not disclosed by Chu Xiu in advance, but most of the martial arts forces who received the news did not think it was a good thing. With Chu Xiu's personality, as long as he could live a peaceful life and not stir up trouble in the northern Yan kingdom, all the major sects would thank the heavens and earth. Of course, from the looks of it now, this kind of thing seemed to be an extravagant hope. 5 days later, in front of Yanjing City's Jianghu Hall, many people from various forces had arrived. However, there were also some people who were not in a hurry to enter the Jianghu Hall. Instead, they gathered outside the door, whispering to inquire about the news and discussing something. "Master Sun, do you know what official Chu is going to do this time?" "Who knows? The war between the righteous and demonic factions has just ended. There should be nothing big, right?" Someone sneered and said, "Naive. If it was someone else, it might not be a big deal, but don't you know the character of official Chu? As soon as the war between the righteous and demonic factions ended, he appeared in the Yunu Palace and killed Palace Master Lin of the Yunu Palace. In the end, he also made a lot of noise. For such a person, you tell me that he summoned us this time just to chat. Do you believe this?" As soon as this remark came out, everyone present was suddenly speechless. If it was someone else, they might be able to analyze it, but for Chu Xiu, they really could not see through him. "By the way, I heard that Shen Feng of the Giant Spirit Gang is very close to Chu Xiu. Why don't we find Shen Feng to inquire about it?" The previous person sneered again and said, "Don't waste your energy. Even if Shen Feng knows, he will not tell you. The Giant Spirit Gang is not the previous Giant Spirit Gang now. It is just a puppet of the Jianghu Hall. And that Shen Feng was pushed to the position by Chu Xiu. He is simply a loyal dog of Chu Xiu. If Chu Xiu does not let him say it, do you think he will dare to say it?" Everyone present was debating. Of course, most of it was useless. Even they themselves did not realize that Chu Xiu had grown to a level that made them tremble. As long as anything related to Chu Xiu was involved, they could only be trampled upon. Just as their discussion became more lively, the door of the Jianghu Hall was pushed open. Chu Xiu walked out and said, "Since everyone is here, why wait here bitterly? Everyone, please go in and take a seat." Seeing that Chu Xiu had personally invited them, everyone present could only nod and follow Chu Xiu into the Jianghu Hall. At this time, Sun Changli, the leader of the Double Moon sect, saw the green sky falcon tide at the entrance of the Jianghu Hall. He could not help but be amazed and said, "It turns out to be the young of the ancient ferocious beast, the green sky falcon. This thing is rare. I didn't expect a green sky falcon to still be alive." The green sky falcon can fly for more than 10 miles with a flap of its wings. Its body is abnormally strong. Because of this, its meat is also abnormally delicious. It is said that eating it can even enhance one's speed. Chu Xiu looked back and said, "Leader's son actually recognizes the young of the green sky falcon? Could it be that Leader's son has studied ferocious beasts before?" Sun Changli smiled a little embarrassedly and said, "Official Chu, please don't laugh at me. Actually, I don't study ferocious beasts, but I like to study some strange food." The description of the green sky falcon is from some ancient books about delicacies. Chu Xiu nodded his head in understanding and said, "Oh, I see. Since it is an ancient book, it must be correct. Tanya, Yenbugue, come over and slaughter this beast. Bring it to the kitchen and let them braise it or steam it. Decide for yourself. Make a dozen dishes and entertain all the leaders." Sun Changli and the others were all stunned, especially Sun Changli. He quickly said, "Official Chu, don't take it seriously. I was just saying. This green sky falcon is even stronger than a martial Dao master when it matures. Isn't it a pity to just kill it and eat its meat?" Chu Xiu glanced at the green sky falcon and said indifferently, "When this thing matures, I'm afraid I would have nurtured more than a dozen martial Dao masters. Moreover, I kept this thing at my doorstep with the intention of letting it guard the house. In the end, this beast eats and drinks my food, but all day long it looks like it's dissatisfied. It's not even as good as a guard dog. What's the point of keeping it? I can use it to entertain all of you." Chu Xiu's words seemed to have a hidden meaning, causing some of the sect masters and family heads present to have a strange feeling. You're tuning in to the Han Li's Immortal Journey YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.